Amendment Bill 2009.
That's changed.
Has it changed to?
Shouldn't we be having question time?
Oh, yes. Trish, did you want to introduce yourself to the House before we proceed with all business of the day?
I call the Honourable Member for North Metropolitan.
Yeah, I've done Youth Parliament probably twice now, and a few people have dropped out, so I sort of said, well, yeah, I'd be happy to continue doing it again this year. So I'm just filling in for the North Metro seat. Yeah, I hope we have an enjoyable day, and thanks for the opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you, Member. Okay. Order number 2?
No, order number 1, Road Traffic Amendment Bill
So order number 1,
2009.
okay. Where are we? I call the Honourable Joshua Renier I can't do it. I tried.
Thank you, Mr.
I
President.
really
The Honourable Josh Flino.
Flino, there we go.
I move to introduce a bill, the Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2009, and that it be read for a first time.
Members, the question is that the bill be read for the first time. The Road Traffic Amendment Act be read for the first time. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Clerk.
A bill for an act to recommend to amend the Road Traffic Act 1974. First reading.
Okay, I call the Honourable Josh Lino.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Josh Flino. This bill recognises that changes are needed to be made to the Road Traffic Act to make Western Australian roads safer and for all its citizens, especially the youth who are just starting out on their licence to freedom. This bill aims to change the way that young people obtain their licences, their learner's permits, and also the way that they obtain their probationary licences through safe driving and building up their experience on city and country roads. This bill introduces an incentive for drivers to reduce the 6-month minimum period, waiting period, by attending hazard driving courses, which will make them much better drivers. This will reduce This hazard driving course I myself have done, and I believe it to have made me a much better driver. It teaches you what to do. It teaches you what to do in certain dangerous situations and can definitely reduce the risk of a crash and make the road safer for all involved, not only those drivers, but the drivers that they can crash into. We also want to remove the colour coding from the P-plates, as for the first 6 months, the colour coding is different, and these will make them unfair targets for police officers. Also, the young P-platers should be able to drive turbo and supercharged cars. Should not be able to drive. They still do not have the reaction times and experience that older drivers have. And although all cars can go fast, supercharged and turbocharged cars are able to go much faster, much higher speeds, much quicker. And they should definitely not be put in the control of young drivers. Also, P-platers in their first 6 months should, however, be able to drive past midnight. Otherwise, if people are out past midnight, they cannot legally get back home. And it promotes safe driving and safe and responsible driving. Also, the bill proposes to extend the opening hours of licensing centres throughout the state. This will increase the accessibility of centres for youth, as currently they close at around 3:30, and that's about when school closes. So for you to go get your licence if you're still in school, you have to miss out on a day of school, and it's difficult, and lots of people don't do that. All in all, these changes to the amendment to the Road Traffic Act will make the licensing system better in Western Australia.
Thank you, Member. The question is, the bill read a second time. I call the Honourable Luke Ellery.
Mr. President, the Honourable Luke Ellery. In the words of a famous song, life is a highway. I won't ride it all night long. The fact is that if we do not ensure the proper road safety laws, no one will be able to ride on the highway. The fact is that Clause 5 of this bill is a very good clause. Clause 5B states that a no turbo or supercharged vehicle can be driven by a learner or P-plate driver. Fast cars are the kind of cars that are meant to be pushed to the limit. And young people, learners and P-platers, do not have the experience and the knowledge to be able to handle one of these. All cars can go fast enough to kill, but these cars can go even faster. They do not have the experience, and also it is that young people, it is known that the brain does not fully develop until 18, in particular the areas of judgment. Now this will affect someone's driving, and it will affect their reaction time and their control over a car. These cars are dangerous and are meant to be driven by drivers with experience and the knowledge of how to use them safely and responsibly. Thank you.
I call the Honourable Refuter, Elizabeth Shannon.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Liz Shannon. To put it plainly, this bill is populist. The government is putting the youth of Western Australia, our future, carelessly and recklessly at risk, simply for the sake of a few votes.
Members.
We admit freely that the government has managed to get it right on the restrictions that have been imposed on the cars that can be driven by novice drivers. We will not, however, stand for the removal of the red and green P-plate system that protects not only novice drivers, those who are at most risk of crashes, but the citizens of Western Australia as a whole. Statistics show that P-plate drivers in their first year of driving are eight more times more likely to be involved in a crash where the passenger is killed than drivers who have been driving for more than a year. The government has stated that they wish to remove the night curfew for red P-plate drivers, and I quote, to promote safe driving by allowing drivers to pick up people that can't drive to drinking. Given that the night curfew applies for only the first 6 months after obtaining a P-plate licence, most people will not actually be 18 anyway. Is this not slightly contradictory? Statistics have indicated that limiting P-plate drivers to driving only between 5 a.m. and midnight could reduce crashes for this group by 60%. That's right, 60%. We are talking about young people's lives here. The government proposes that the 6-month waiting period between second phase Ls and probationary licence, a time that is necessary for them to gain experience in as many driving conditions as possible, can be decreased by taking a professional or defensive driving course, one that can be completed in just a matter of hours. Are they suggesting that this is enough to make up for the loss of driving experience? In conclusion, I would like to clarify that the opposition stance is not about unfairly targeting or punishing novice drivers. Quite the opposite. There are a plethora of statistics to show that young people of Western Australia are staggeringly overrepresented in relation to the percentage of deaths that occur on the road. The amendments that we propose to this bill correct the ludicrous bill that the government proposes to protect the future of Western Australia.
Thank you, member. The question is to be read for a second time. Someone seeking the call? I call the Honourable Tammy-Ann Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Tammy-Ann Caldwell. Subsidised hazard driving courses for learner drivers should be available, and doing one should decrease the amount of time that you have to record in your logbook. I wasn't driving or drinking or speeding, but I can't remember the bad car accident I had while on my Ps, so I won't ever know whether having done a hazard driving course would have prevented that crash. It's common knowledge, however, that P-platers often have crashes in the first few months of having their licence, often because they go too fast, and I quote the RAC, as they mistakenly believe they are sufficiently skilled to control a vehicle at high speeds. Young people aged 17 to 25 represent just 12% of Australia's population, yet this age group accounts for 27% of motorists killed or seriously injured in road crashes every year. That's every one of us in this house, 3 times over, dead or seriously injured every week. So I definitely think that having government subsidised hazard driving courses when you're on your Ls in order to decrease your logbook time is a very good idea.
Question is, to be read a second time. I call the Honourable Member for Southwest, Michael Bovell.
Thank you, Mr. President, the Honourable Michael Bovell. We once again have a government that does not care about the young adults on our roads. Taking away the night curfew and red P plates will not save lives. 47% of males and 35% of females that die between the ages of 17 and 24 die as a result of road traffic accidents. Most young drivers are responsible, although they are not experienced and therefore they do not understand the hazards that they may face on the road. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Member. Question is, to be read a second time. Seeking the call. Someone? Anyone? Thank you. The Member for the Leader of the House.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Dylan Capehorn.
To my left.
I thank the opposition as well. This bill is fantastic. The way it reforms, Mr. President, the Road Traffic Amendment Bill, which has desperately wanted and craved, Mr. President, the reforms ever since the previous Labor government, Mr. President, reformed it back to the Stone Ages, shall I suggest. Under 18s should not be in charge of cars that can kill. We should not be giving them. We should not be giving them turbo or supercharged cars. They do not need them. They need little Nissan bombs that cost $100 with 3 wheels and no exhaust pipe.
Members.
The night curfew needs to be removed because in the case of a party, someone goes out for a light drink, and we all know it happens. Underage drinking occurs. It's not okay. I'm just saying it occurs. It occurs, Mr. President. And the night curfew promotes safe driving at night. Between the hours of 12 and 5, you are allowing them to set up the system. You're allowing them to set up a system. You're allowing them to set up a system, Mr. President, of designated drivers. Designated drivers. If you appoint, and I'll take an example, the Honourable Josh Reinier now. All the government members go out for a drink. The Honourable Josh will be the designated drivers. He should be allowed to take us home.
Members to my left. I'm trying to hear the government's argument, but I'm constantly being drowned out. So please have that respect and allow relative silence.
Thank you, Mr. President. And the Honourable Josh Reinier takes us out, and when we're all a bit tipsy, inebriated even, thank you, the Honourable Vlada Lemaic, he takes us home. And we have been taught a responsible lesson, Mr. President, that although drinking is bad, he can drive between the hours of 12 and 5.
Remember, I call the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Lewis Richards. I'd first like you to commend the Oscar-winning performance by the leader of the government there. That was fantastic. But I'd also like to state some of the ideas which the Minister of Child Protection put forward. Understandable, Mr. President, that we should give the most experience to our learner drivers they can. However, we should not give an incentive to reduce to 6 months just for the sake of this course, Mr. President, because we should be giving them the maximum they can do. So, creating an amendment which we will be putting forward, which makes it mandatory. Yes, mandatory. We actually are agreeing to a mandatory for once, Mr. President. Sorry, mandatory for when it comes to something we've experienced, which like the lives and dangers of a person controlling a vehicle, which can affect these other lives. That we need to make sure that we can show that we have given the most opportunity for this experience and to them to be effective and good enough to drive on all the conditions, Mr. President. And that is why we are against this bill and we are for that amendment.
Thank you, Member. Do we have someone seeking the call? No one seeking the call? Okay, if there's no further speakers, we move. The question is that the bill be agreed to. All those in the opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
An Act to amend the Road Traffic Act 1974, second reading.
one. Alrighty. There you go. The question is that clause 1 stand as printed. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. Okay, are there any amendments before clause 3? No? Okay, no worries. So we put clause 2. Question is that clause 2 stand as printed. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is that clause 3 stand as printed. Do we have a speaker on clause 3? The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The Honourable Lewis Richards. I move for clause 3 to delete and substitute with 6. No, clause 3 and it says 6. I don't know if that's correct. But 6, probationary licence. A, red P plates 0 to 12. Okay, 12 months minimum. Each traffic offence recorded and demerit points adds 3 months to the red P plate period. B, green P plates 12 to 36 months minimum. Each traffic offence recorded demerits points add 3 months to green plate period. And C, P plate drivers allowed only one passenger in vehicle aged between 16 and 21 at all times. So then it would read 6, probationary licence. A, red P plate 0 to 12 months minimum. Each traffic offence recorded and demerit points add 3 months to red P plate period. B, green P plates 12 months to 36 months minimum. Each traffic offence recorded demerits at points adds 3 months to green plate period. C, P plate drivers allowed only one passenger in vehicle aged 16, 21 at all times.
No, yeah, I know that. Yeah, that's not the issue. Okay, the question is, amendment be agreed to? All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Okay, the question is that clause 4 stand as printed. I call the Honourable Elizabeth Shannon.
Mr. Chairman, the Honourable Liz Shannon. I move to delete clause 4A and to delete clause 4C and substitute with all learners in phase 2 of licensed logbook will complete 3 hours of professional driving and defensive courses for the driver to better understand the issues that may be faced on the road, to be subsidised by the government.
I don't have the copy of that amendment. I have clause 4, which is to move to delete 4C. Yes? Aha. So the one printed in is actually the one that is... That's the original. Okay, no worries. Yep, that's fine. Anyone speaking against the motion or for the motion? I call the Honourable Michael Bovell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The Honourable Michael Bovell. Driving a motor vehicle is the most dangerous activity that most of us will partake in our lives. Advanced professional defensive driving courses will show all new drivers skills more advanced than just passing the Road Traffic Authority driving test. These amendments will result in a reduction in minor and major motor vehicle accidents by 75%. The opposition strongly supports the implementation of this amendment.
I call the Leader of the Government.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Dylan Capehorn. I'd like to point out all learners in Stage 2 will complete 3 hours of professional driving and defensive driving course. While we support the mandatory, and this, let's stress that, the mandatory professional driving and defensive driving courses, we think that it should be more. It should be 10 hours. They should be made to do more than 3 hours, because let's face it, 3 hours is half a day. And if they don't listen, they can crash. But therefore, on that case, we will support the 3 hours so that in the future it may be increased to 10 hours.
Thank you, Member. Anyone seeking the call? No one? Okay, the question is, the amendment be agreed to? All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is that clause 5 stand as printed. I call the Honourable Elizabeth Shannon.
Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Liz Shannon. I move to delete clause 5C and schedule 1 and substitute with 5. Limit to vehicles that can be driven by learner and probationary drivers. A. Limit vehicles to cars with 4 cylinders or less, or a rotary engine with 1146cc or less. B. Nose, turbo or supercharged vehicles excluding diesel vehicles. C. Vehicles driven as a part of the driver's employment or at the request of their employer exempt during working hours. So that the clause 5 would then read, 5. Limit to vehicles that can be driven by learner and probation drivers. A. Limit vehicles to cars with 4 cylinders or less, or a rotary engine with capacity of 1146cc or less. B. No turbo or supercharged vehicles excluding diesel vehicles. C. Vehicles driven at the driver's employment or at the request of the employer exempt during working hours.
Thank you, member. Anyone seeking the call to speak in favour or against the motion? I call the Honourable Michael Bovell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Michael Bovell. There has been a capacity restriction to limit new motorcycle riders to 250cc engine capacity for the first 12 months, with very little community objection for many years. In fact, this has become the culture with motorcycle riders. It is fully understood that if inexperienced riders were allowed to ride 1000cc motorcycles, this would lead to a seriously dangerous situation. This is the same situation as inexperienced drivers restricted to cars with non-turbo 4-cylinder engines. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you, member. If there's no one seeking the call any further, I'll put the question. The question is the amendment be agreed to. All those of the opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. There are no further amendments. No, there's not. Okay, so we now... I'm assuming there's a clause 6, so the question is a clause 6 status printed. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Question is that clause 7 status printed. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Question is that the Schedule 1 status printed.
Chairperson,
Yes, ma'am.
as the schedule now has been removed due to that amendment, I move to delete the Schedule 1 from the bill.
Okay. Thank you, member. The question is that Schedule 1 be removed from the bill. All those of the opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. Okay, the ayes have it. That's all. Okay. That is correct. The question is that this shall be the title of the bill. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Okay, here we go. I call the Honourable Joshua Brigno.
I move that the Chairman report the bill to the House.
Thank you, member. The question is that the Chairman report the bill to the House. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Committee stage, consider the bill, agree to the same with amendments. And we shall... There we go. I call the Honourable Josh Bino.
Thank you, Mr. President, the Honourable Josh Bino. I move that the bill now be read a third time. I believe with the amendments that have been passed, that this bill will definitely promote safe driving and safety on our roads even more than it has in its unamended form. I believe definitely that not allowing P-platers to drive supercharged and turbocharged cars would definitely make the road safer. And yeah, thanks.
Thank you, member. Is there any further speakers? Someone who's refuting? I'm looking at you, Liz. Thank you. I call the Honourable Liz Shannon.
Mr. President, the Honourable Liz Shannon. The opposition proposes these amendments to make the roads safer for novice drivers. We believe these amendments are important. As statistics have shown, the number of crashes to protect novice drivers and all drivers on the road.
Yeah. Okay, no one else seeking the call. We have a bit of time left if anyone wants to speak. I call the Honourable Michael Bovell.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Michael Bovell. 20% of all road deaths of drivers aged between 17 and 24 die between the hours of 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. Saturday morning and Sunday morning. These 12 hours, or 7% of the week, account for 20% of the deaths. Probationary drivers need a significant incentive to encourage them to drive safely and within the road rules at all times. If this bill is passed, young drivers that do flout the rules will take a significant time penalty before they are able to drive higher powered vehicles. The Honourable Opposition has also included the provision to reduce the impact of peer pressure on young drivers by allowing one passenger between 16 and 21 years in the car at all times. Young drivers are more likely to crash because they are trying to impress their peers by driving fast and recklessly. The chances of a young driver being involved in an accident, if they have more than one passenger in the car, increases by 8 times, especially if the passengers were male. This is the equivalent of having a blood alcohol concentration of 0.15%. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Members, the question is that No? Where am I? Okay, the question is that the West Australia YMCA Legislative Council agree that the bill now be read for a third time. All those that opinion shall pass to the right of the chair and those against to the left. Ring the bells. Please. Okay, lock the doors. Members, the question is that the bill be read for a third time. I appoint as okay. Anyone moving? No? Okay. Okay.
Members.
Okay, I appoint as teller for the ayes, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, and teller for the noes, the Honourable Luke Kovac. And okay, the result of the division is ayes 12, noes 7, a majority of 5 for the ayes. Therefore, the motion is resolved in the affirmative. Members should resume their seats. Okay. I think based on the division, the ayes have it, and the bill will be read a third time.
An Act to amend the Road Traffic Act 1974, third reading.
Thank you, members. As we're ahead of time again, bill's passed. We now need someone to move a motion to adjourn. I call the Honourable Leader of the Government.
Mr. President, I move that thank you, Mr. President, the Honourable Dylan Caporn. I move that we adjourn until the ringing of the bells.
Members, the question is that the House adjourn to the ringing of the bells. All those that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The House will adjourn. Sweet. Thanks, guys. The reason why you weren't was that you wanted to be. Guys, I know we only had about half hour. Come on, guys. I know we only had about half hour for that bill, but just keep watching the clock because we did get to a point where there was people not talking because they obviously weren't aware that we had time constraints. But if you just follow the clock, you can tell when we've got time. So it's good just to jump up and say a few words, even if it's just for the sake of making yourself speak. Education is next. Environment is the one after.
Okay.
Yeah, it hasn't changed. Because that was the. Unless it's changed again without. That was the original plan anyway. So it's staying like I'd assume so. So the next one should be education. But be prepared for it to be environment because we never know. It's actually going to be one. So, you can, if you want to head down to the house and watch the last bit of question time, because this could be a good time to watch their attempting to make some.
There might be something worthwhile to see.
They're attempting to make some history, so I'd suggest you take it. Alrighty. Alrighty. Thank you. Business of the day.
So I can see business of the day, order number 1, and read that. Okay.
Business of the day, order number 1, the Kimberley Industrial Development Bill 2009.
Okay. Thank you. I call the Honourable, who's speaking, Gemma Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President, the Honourable Gemma Lee. I move that the bill be read for a first time.
Members, the question is that the Kimberley Industrial Development Bill 2009 be read for a first time. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
A bill for immediate prevention of LNG processing and development in the Kimberley region of Western Australia, and to provide a framework for future commercial operation due to ecological significance status of the Kimberley.
You say first reading.
First reading.
Thank you, Clerk. I call the Honourable Gemma Lee.
President, the Honourable Gemma Lee, I move that the bill now be read a second time. The Kimberley Industrial Development Bill serves to ban the proposed industrial development in the Kimberley and will be assessed with relevance to criteria relating to the environment, economic and tourism/cultural impacts. The bill also provides a sum of royalties for any development to be directly used by the local Indigenous communities for improved facilities and opportunities. Woodside Petroleum and its partners intend to construct a gas refinery and port at James Price Point, 60 kilometres north of Broome, after discovering vast reserves of natural gas in the Browse Basin, an underworld geological formation off the Kimberley coast. Unfortunately, this development has far-reaching and harmful effects on the environment, the local community and the economy. When there are viable and more desirable alternatives to the current proposal, it's clear it should be banned. The Kimberleys is a unique and almost totally wild environment that is important to reserve under the threat and is under threat from this type of development. It is a place for sanctuary. It has the Camden Whale Sanctuary and many reef ecosystems. Harm to this environment will have a significant impact on the tourist industry in the Kimberleys. The tourist industry is a major source of wealth and employment for many people and relies heavily on its pristine wilderness brand. It is also unlikely that too many industrial ports of this size can be built in the Kimberleys, and if done in a private context, this port has the potential to hand a market-distorting advantage or monopoly to Woodside and its partners for future projects. This short-changes the people of WA and stifles competition in industries requiring port facilities.
Shame.
Excuse me. This bill benefits the community as fly in fly out workers have the potential to harm nearby communities, and when the nearest town is a cultural drill like Broome, this is an unacceptable cost. Oil and gas employees with their extreme buying power push up the cost with their cost of living to the point where it erodes wealth for all and pushes down standards of living for the unemployed and the low-income earners. Also a problem is the destruction as an Indigenous culture tourism is a major source of income for many Aboriginal Indigenous people. There is an alternative that is not more expensive. This is a pipeline to the Karratha plant, which keeps all the harmful effects of oil and gas extraction that I have previously stated. The bill prevents the destruction of the Kimberleys and allows for an alternate to the gas plant that prevents all harmful effects. The gas plant in the Karratha has the capacity to take this gas, so why not send it there instead of destroying one of the most beautiful parts of Australia?
Thank you, member. The question is, will be now read a second time. I call the Honourable Mitchell Goff.
Mr. President, the Honourable Mitchell Goff. Can I just preface my argument by saying that the emotive language espousing from the government simply stills my beating heart, Mr. President. It simply stills my beating heart.
Members to my right.
Mr. President, this bill completely undermines the future economic welfare of Western Australia. In its greatest time of need, this government would deny a much-needed tonic in order to ride out an imminent recession. Studies have determined that it is simply not feasible, due to capacity reasons, to transport the gas anywhere else in the northwest. Not only this, Mr. President, but when the Assembly passed this bill by those who supported it, it can be said that they gave no consideration for the statistics. And the statistics state that only 0.2% of the Kimberley will be negatively affected by an LNG gas processing plant. In addition to this, studies undertaken by the International Best Practice have shortlisted the proposed Kimberley gas plant, Mr. President. This bill runs contrary to the economic and, ironically, the environmental benefits for Western Australia.
Thank you, member. I call the Honourable Luke Ellery.
Ellery. In walking past a children's playground, you might often hear the children sing, "If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands." But I let the opposition know that if this port and gas refinery goes ahead, no one will be clapping their hands. There is so many economical impacts, environmental impacts. In fact, has the opposition considered that if Woodside is allowed the right to build a gas refinery and a port in the Kimberley, they would have a monopoly over all transport in the region. Have we not learnt from the financial crisis? It is the over-market power of the companies that has resulted in less market power for the consumers. And if Mr. President, may I be heard in silence? If Woodside goes ahead with the port, they will be able to dictate all transport within the Kimberley region. That is the economical impact of a monopoly. It has already been pointed out that it is $4 billion to pipe the gas from the, where is it? Camden Sound to the Pilbara. And the fact is that this $4 billion is 12 times cheaper than the proposed $50 billion port proposed by Woodside. It is economically, you are still getting, the point is, if you choose to pipe the gas, you are still getting the gas. We are not saying they should not be allowed the right to pipe the gas. We are saying that Woodside should not be granted the right to build a port and refinery on the Kimberley.
Thank you, member. The question is being read a second time. I call the Honourable Vlada Lemake.
Mr. President, the reality of the situation is quite simply that we need resources to sustain energy demands. This gap... This gas plant, Mr. President, is not going... Okay, I mean, look, this gas plant is not going to sit on the beach, all right? It's going to be in a discrete location, 100-odd kilometres off the coast, out of the way. Where is this ecotourism argument coming from, Mr. President? The whole argument is that it's going to ruin, it's going to have grave effects on the environment and grave effects on tourism. But that's simply not that's simply not the case. If this gas plant was built on the beach, maybe, but it's not. It's built in a discrete location away from any touristically significant locations. This bill, quite frankly, Mr. President, reeks of environmental conservatism and almost a personal grudge against Woodside. I would ask the member who wrote this bill whether or not they have an agenda against Woodside. And not only that, there are clauses in this bill dictating how much compensation the Kimberley Land Council is to receive. Mr. President, what is the point? It is almost insulting to dictate to the Kimberley Land Council how much compensation they should receive. For God's sakes, they should know. If they're unhappy with the compensation, they will reject the offer to build on their land. We need, quite frankly, Mr. President, we need to reduce our dependence on coal desperately. Gas is a cleaner alternative, more economically viable. It simply makes sense to build this gas plant. And the monopoly argument. How is it a monopoly when there are multiple resource extraction companies operating in Western Australia? Just because Woodside has realised the economic incentive before anyone else does not mean they are creating a monopoly.
Thank you, member. The question is being read a second time. I call the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Lewis Richards. Now, economic developments are needed in Western Australia for us to prosper as a country and as a state, Mr. President. What this bill does is that in any future circumstances where it does become viable, it still says, nope, sorry, you can't do it. That is why, that's what, for amendment we are going to introduce later on, Mr. President, that this will give this option. What this bill does, it says for any specific reason that in the future that it becomes economically viable, they're going to say, no, if I apologise, this is unparliamentary, bugger it, Mr. President, we can't do it because this bill says it. Now, everything has a potential to affect the status quo. This fly-out system does that. This is just not a credible argument. That's why. Migrants come here, I think the Honourable Child Protection will probably agree with this, that migrants do affect the Australian culture. It is true. However, just because it does that, what are we going to do? To stop all of them? Are we going to stop eastern states coming to western states for what jobs? Are we going to stop western states? Are we going to stop any travel just because it could affect the status quo of the area? Now, the issue of Pilbara. Yes, $4 billion is substantially less than the cost of what this bill would make. However, that's just a direct cost, Mr. President. There's going to be indirect costs. The Pilbara port will not be able to, it can't even at the moment sustain, it's a bottleneck, it can't even sustain current demands. Imagine what's to be in the future. How much is it going to cost? How much is it going to cost, Mr. President? How much is it going to cost, Mr. President, to make the port bigger? That's going to build up. Now, how about to make the trains and the railway system better? That's going to cost a bit more. And then additional infrastructure of businesses and clothing and all the other stuff builds up. So it's to be actually probably economically viable to just pay the 40 million out front and then see the economic consequences on the future on. Because this bill will stop economic developments, and with our amendments, it does give the chance, Mr. President, that when it becomes economically and eco-friendly viable, because this opposition is not stating that environment is not
Conclude, please, member.
that this amendments will make it economically and environmentally viable in the future.
Thank you, member. Anyone seeking the call? I call the Honourable Kate Novelli.
President, the Honourable Kate Novelli. The Kimberley region in the northwest of Western Australia is of global significance, not only in terms of its beauty but its size. They are one of the world's last unspoilt environment, and it is the last frontier in our state. I can personally attest to its beauty, Mr. President, as I spent the first 12 years of my life living there and benefiting from it. From the Bungle Bungles to Cable Beach, this area of our state is the most special region and it deserves protection. As a result, the surrounding communities have based their lifestyle and indeed their livelihood on its beauty. Tourism has become the second largest industry. The introduction of this offshore oil and gas reservoir stands to destroy this all. The implications of its development is extreme. It will damage the community cohesion of these towns that they have struggled to create. With the possibility of fly-in and fly-out workers, the local populations will decrease and become temporary. This will hinder and prevent the sorts of community activities such as weekend sports, community groups and festivals that bind these populations together. I have seen this firsthand, the implications that a mobile workforce has on a small Kimberley community. In the late 1990s, the Argyle Diamond Mine relocated its workforce and made them become fly-in, fly-out out of Kununurra, meaning that the population almost halved as families moved out of the area, suspending sustainable economic development in favour of a mining camp-style model. This development also threatens the important and ancient Indigenous cultural artefacts and rock art in its immediate area. This development equates to asset destruction, as the local Indigenous people rely heavily on the Indigenous culture and tourism. It provides not only employment and resulting income, but a sense of pride and heritage for communities otherwise severely disadvantaged. Those communities already struggle with the challenges of ill health and mass unemployment. Do not deny the communities of the Kimberley the possibility of continual flourishing. They deserve their region to be protected.
Thank you, member. Is someone seeking the call? I call the Honourable Rachel Moles.
Thank you, Mr. President, the Honourable Rachel Moles. This bill protects the people of the Kimberley from social issues that plague the Pilbara. We want to protect the Kimberley from ridiculously high cost of living that the Pilbara community face. The prices of houses is driven up by lack of houses. The cost of rent and groceries are unreasonably high. This puts strain on families who do not work in the mining industry because they cannot afford such high costs. The majority of mining workers are fly-in and fly-out, so they do not actually live in these communities. These workers change the sense of community that exists in the Kimberley. They're also disruptive for the town through their work hours and sometimes their behaviour. We do not want fly-in, fly-out workers from taking over the Kimberley.
Members, before I give the call, just to remind you that everyone will be speaking, so if you don't stand up, I'll start calling you at random. So it's in your best interest to jump up. Thank you. I call the Honourable Luke Kovac.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Luke Kovac. Look, this basin, this area where it's designed, where it's proposed building is the single least damaging option. This idea that it's going to cause mass disruption to the communities is just speculation. It's things that have been made up. It's not going to cause any damage. It's not in sight. People can't see it. Okay? It's not. It takes up 0.2% of the area in that region. It's completely out of sight.
What about the port?
The port needs to be built. We cannot, yes, that will, but we cannot send these ships elsewhere if the only other option to send the ships is to Karratha Port. Now the Karratha Port is completely overloaded. Okay, the gas trains don't have space to take the gas, and the port does not have space to take extra ships. There's no room. We need to build a new one, and this is the best option.
Thank you, member. I call the Honourable Lauren Goodhart.
President, the Honourable Lauren Goodhart. I am a part of the tourism industry, and I know for a fact that nobody goes to the area that we are proposing. If you are to go through that area, you'll go from Broome up to Northern Territory. That's through the middle of Australia, and it's through the middle of Western Australia, and it's not on the coastline. The coastline is unseen by humans, and it's the best possible area to have it.
How do you hire shit?
If the issues are to be raised, raise them through the chair. However, having both the Leader of the Opposition and the member for East Metro have already spoken, you are now both on the verge of being issued a warning, so be mindful of that. I call the Honourable Georgia O'Keefe.
Mr. President, the Honourable Georgia O'Keefe. The main issue with this bill is that it is in fact forfeiting any chance of future development. That is not viable. It's not possible. You can't say that we are never going to build on this land. Australia is developing. Australia is developing, and you can't just cancel out that fact. Eventually we are going to have to be developing into these areas, and I'm not saying cancel out all of the traditional Australian land, because obviously you can't do that, but as stated by the Honourable Lauren Goodhart, no one is there. It's an area. It is an area of land, and no one sees it. So why does it matter if there's a gas plant there? It's ridiculous. You can't just say that a massive area of land that no one sees and just you can't say that that can't be developed on. And Australia is developing, and it's going to need development in the future. We're going to have to go inland more because we're just getting bigger, and it's just not possible. I'm sorry.
I call the Honourable Tammy-Ann Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Tammy-Ann Caldwell. There are many places in Australia, both natural and built, that are heritage listed, and they will never be built on. That's the whole point. So it's quite feasible to have places that we say, at least for the next sort of 10 years, you cannot build on them. That exists. Because of its natural pristine estate. It's a beautiful country. Okay. Tourism, including ecotourism and Indigenous culture tourism, is the Kimberley region's second largest industry, bringing in millions every year. Since the emphasis on holidaying and tourism campaigns for the Kimberley have increased, especially since the very realistic film Australia was released, it has dramatically increased tourism and the associated revenue this brings to the Kimberley. Yes, they are. This is according to the WA Tourism Commission.
Members to my left. Relative silence is awarded to every speaker, and I suggest you also keep that in mind as you were awarded that silence. Thank you. Continue.
Thank you. This is because people go to the Kimberley for its awe-inspiring, natural, breathtaking, pristine and largely untouched environment. This is the point. It's largely untouched because no one is there, no one lives there, and there's no infrastructure there. This is why it is so beautiful. Making a big port and gas refinery and the associated shipping will drastically destroy all of this, the environment and the tourism industry. The Water Corporation... Publication reported that it would have significant ecological impacts, and the pipeline and the associated infrastructure of the Water Corporation's pipeline review is very similar to the proposed construction of the new gas refinery and the pipeline and the port. So these will also have significant ecological impacts. Although the water pipeline is technically feasible, said this report, a project of this sort is highly complex with significant uncertainty relating to environmental approvals and Aboriginal heritage, and the same statement applies to building a port and a gas pipeline and a gas refinery up there. The difference in scope between a $50 billion project and a $4 billion project is significant. Think about the huge marginal difference in energy consumption necessary to build a new plant in Browse Basin. Plus, greenhouse emissions from all the transporting of raw materials to the area is huge. Is Woodside prepared to counteract this? And what about the energy and emissions required for refining these raw materials for construction of the gas refinery? The Water Corporation's study also questions the health of local ecosystems, vegetation and animal life, all things affected by Woodside's proposal. This year alone, there has been the discovery of many new frog species in the Kimberley region. Who's to say that there are not other new native species there that have not been discovered? Camden Sound, will the opposition leader please allow me to speak in silence? Camden Sound is the home of humpback whale sanctuary and many reef ecosystems. So making a port there that will see this natural coastline and environment ruined, plus ships will be dumping their dirty bilge water here in this clean water on these whale sanctuaries and on the ecosystems. Why would we allow all this unique, breathtaking, beautiful WA environment be destroyed when for $46 billion less, Woodside could pipe the gas to the already existing gas refinery in Karratha? Now, this might sound, as the opposition said, a motive, but it is because of this environment that tourism has the huge economic benefits it brings, and it is because of this, in motive language, of the environment that the region's second highest industry is tourism. Now, we might be politicians, but we're not robots, so do the oppositions not have any sense of pride or importance in our wonderful heritage environment? Especially when there is an alternative, we must remember that there is more to life than money.
Thank you, Member. I call the Honourable Joshua Blino.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Josh Blino. We cannot forget the alternative to this $50 billion plant. It's only a $4 billion pipeline. $4 billion pipeline. The gas plant at Karratha already exists, and it is not at capacity. There is no bottleneck. We can pipe the gas down to Karratha, and this will cancel out all the effects of building a pipeline, a refinery in the Kimberley region. Yes, really. Excuse me. The refinery, according to the Honourable Opposition, only takes up 0.2% of the area of the Kimberley. That only takes into account the area. The effects will be much greater than only 0.2%. There will be fly-in, fly-out workers. These people do not live in the Kimberley, and even though they are Australian, they might not necessarily really care that much about the area. They fly in there, they do their thing, they get paid lots, they change the livelihoods of those people who actually live there, and they don't really care. Look at the Pilbara. The Pilbara has had this fly-in, fly-out workers that have seriously destroyed the area. Turned it from a great tourist destination to one that's not really that great anymore, and the tourism industry has seriously declined. But it's not just the area it's the effects of everyone that works there, of the environmental effects, all of that you have to take into account. Kimberley has never had an extinction of an animal species. Quite on the contrary, a new animal species was just discovered very recently, and as Felix Ellis has said, we know, Mr. Ellis, the Honourable Mr. Ellis, we know more about Mars than we do about the Kimberley. So instead of destroying the Kimberley, we should just pipe down the gas, which only costs $4 billion, $46 billion cheaper than building a refinery. And we will still get the gas. We will still get the gas. The government will still receive all royalties and taxes. We have a refinery already, so what's the point of building another one? It doesn't matter, we still have the refinery. Sorry? We still have the refinery, we can just pipe it down, it'll be much cheaper. It'll be cheaper, have the same effect, and be much more environmentally friendly than building a new refinery. So what's wrong with that? What's wrong with just building a pipeline?
Thank you, Member. The question is bill be added a second time. I call the Leader of the Government.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Dylan Capehorn. $46 billion, Mr. President. $46 billion. That's how much you're saving. That's 92 multi-purpose stadiums, Mr. President. That's 92! Mr. President, we have seen a fantastic film and tourist campaign come out in the last year. Australia by Baz Luhrmann encouraged foreigners, Mr. President, encouraged foreigners and travellers to come to the Kilbra, to come to the Kimberley, Mr. President, and go walkabout. That was the campaign, it was go walkabout. This encouraged people to come into the Kimberley.
Members to my left, relative silence for the Speaker, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The effects on the environment are also catastrophic. We do not need to, and I'm quoting the Honourable Environment Minister again, Mr. President, we don't need to Pilbarise the Kimberley. So let's not Pilbarise the Kimberley.
Again, before I give the call, members who have already spoken should not try to speak through an interjection. And you know who I'm talking to.
Mr. President, I think he wants a warning.
He is now. It was actually someone else, but that's also a good idea. Maybe later. I call the Honourable. I've got to get his name, otherwise I forgot it. Where are we? Sinead Newman.
Mr. President, the Honourable Sinead Newman. I would like to point out that the Browse Basin where the plant is proposed is 60 kilometres from Broome. Broome is where people go, tourists go.
And then they drive around the surrounding region.
The leader of the government, we're on the verge of a warning.
I would also like to point out that they're already expanding the Dampier port to handle the exports. If we sent the gas to Dampier, they would have to further expand the port. And
Rubbish. Thank you, member. I call the Honourable Latricia Barnett.
Points. First of all, with regards to native title claims, do the honourable members of the opposition honestly believe that there will not be any native title claims raised after the production of this project? Is Woodside or any other private sector company prepared to pay for these claims for the compensation, on top of the compensation payouts? It's going to prove a significant roadblock which the government is not prepared to fund. Another point, steel prices. Steel prices are expected to rise in the next few years, regardless of our economic climate. There was an article in the Australian newspaper which stated that the costs for the projected costs for the project were conservative to say the least. Significant cost blowouts, which are unforeseen, may result, or most likely will result in long delays. Particularly if Woodside's share prices are low. And funding is scarce. So how long does the opposition expect people to wait for the new gas port to be built? Then in terms of the monopoly arguments that the Honourable Lewis Richards brought up, if I were to build, yes he did, if I were to build a transport system and a port, would I honestly allow other companies to use them? Well, I probably would. Yeah, I would if you were to pay me. But I know that because I'm the owner of the system that I can charge you whatever I want. Now, I'm not sure what the Honourable Lewis Richards thinks is going to happen if, Woodside's going to be, la-di-da with other companies, letting them use their facilities. But I know that if I was in charge of Woodside that I would block other competitors out because I know that monopoly profits are higher than if there is competition or oligopoly. In terms of the amount of gas that's expected to come out of the plant, I know that if I was providing 3 times more gas that was currently provided now, that I know that I wouldn't be charging prices that you're seeing at the moment. So I know that the prices are going to inflate incredibly.
I call the Honourable Michael Bovell.
Thank you, Mr. President, the Honourable Michael Bovell. The opposition is a strong supporter of the James Price Point gas processing plant. It is a project that will bring both revenue and royalties to the Western Australian state government and will directly benefit the people of the state of Western Australia. We need to expand the industrial development of this state to ensure the best outcomes for the future of the state. The Browse Basin is one of the most hydrocarbon-rich areas in the world. The government in the lower house are opposing a project that has construction costs of $25 billion and an economic life of 40 years and would generate billions of dollars in royalties that would be spent in Western Australia on projects such as infrastructure, namely a stadium in Perth.
Yeah.
The traditional owners and the Kimberley Land Council have studied the effects on their culture, cultural artefacts and sacred sites, and have agreed that the impact of this development would not be significant enough not to support this project. The Northern Development Task Force studied 40 possible sites for the project and chose James Price Point. The study found that this was the best location, not only from a technical and engineering standpoint, but also to have minimal environmental impact while respecting Aboriginal culture and perspectives. If the government are opposed to this development, I would suggest they not only reduce their personal energy consumption, but reduce their reliance on Asian-produced imports. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, member. I call the Honourable... Thank you, members. I call the Honourable Liz Shannon.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Liz Shannon. As the Honourable Judge O'Keefe has pointed out, the government simply cannot legislate for the future. It is not economically viable to prevent future industrial infrastructure and economic development. It is well known, in fact, that it is the role and the responsibility of the government to ensure sound economic management of the state's economy, both in the present and the future. Yet the government seems to wish to undermine the state's ability and capability to stop Western Australia sliding into recession just for the sake of 0.2% of the state's coastline.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, member. I call the Honourable Ian Garlett.
Mr. President, the Honourable Ian Garlett. Let's just remind ourselves that this gas plant is to be 400 kilometres away from the coast. This won't affect ecotourism in the slightest way. And like my Honourable Michael Bovell pointed out, the royalties developed from this project will be able to put back to the state of Western Australia. That way we can benefit as a state. And with this revenue, it can fund other projects, like you pointed out, like the new stadium. And it can also benefit, and the Indigenous community, which is represented by the Kimberley Land Council, will receive compensation from builders of the plant for the acquisition of the land. And impact the gas plant can cause. It can be used to fund such things as health and education in the area.
Thank you, member. I call the Honourable Christine Hamilton Prime.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Christine Hamilton Prime. The port is not the issue in this bill. The port can be seen as a state, public-private partnership venture.
If there are no further speakers, which I'm pretty sure there aren't, everyone has spoken, so therefore there need to be no interjection. Thank you. The question is that the bill will be narrowed a second time. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Yep. A bill for immediate creation of LNG processing and development in the Kimberley region of Western Australia, and to provide a framework for future commercial operations due to ecological significant status of the Kimberley. Second reading.
Sure.
The question is that Clause 1 stand as printed. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The question is that Clause 2 stand as printed. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The question is that Clause 3 stand as printed. I call the Honourable Mitchell Goff.
Madam Chairman, the Honourable Mitchell Goff. I move that to delete the word east from the definition of the Kimberley region and substitute it with the word west, so that the phrase will then read, Kimberley region, the part of the state north of the Pilbara border and west of the Northern Territory border, so the overall clause will make geographical sense.
I call the Honourable Dylan Capehorn.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Dylan Capehorn. Thank you,
I believe
Madam
the chair is Madam
Chairperson.
Chair.
I apologise. I apologise. Maybe you can give me a warning. The government agrees on this amendment simply because it was a slight mistake by the Honourable Environment Minister, the Honourable Felix Ellis. We agree on it and we support it.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The question is that Clause 4 stand as printed. I call the Honourable Lewis Richards.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The Honourable Lewis Richards. I move to insert Clause 4A, so that it will read 4A Environment Review. When a Kimberley gas plant becomes environmentally viable, this will void Clause 4 subject to review. The reason why the opposition would like to introduce this amendment, as I've stated before in my second reading speech, Madam Chairperson, is that we can't legislate against economic development. Before the Industrial Revolution occurred, they were trying to find other ways of more, the correct term, efficiently create and put new industries, Madam Chairperson, until a person called Mr. James Watt invented the steam engine. And this one small, insignificant at a time invention revolutionised the whole history of this part. So what we're saying with this amendment is that subject to a review, we're not saying that the moment it comes we just whip out. We're saying subject to a review when it does become environmentally viable, Madam Chairperson, because as we know that technological advances are happening every day, and it could be tomorrow, or it could be 1 year, it could be 2 years, it could be 10 years, that they find a way to store this waste, Madam Chairperson. So we're saying we should not hamper technological and environmental progress just for the sake of the environment.
I call the Honourable Dylan Capehorn.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, the Honourable Dylan Capehorn. I'd like to propose something to the Honourable Opposition. This will void Clause 4 subject to a review. A review by who? Woodside, the government, or a primary school student? Can we actually clarify something?
I call the Honourable Lewis Richards.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The Honourable Lewis Richards. Fair enough point. It goes, but however, it goes like the reasons why we didn't put it as an example, because there can be, even in government or in industry or environmental, there can be bias. I mean, like, for example, it goes that there's, I'm not stating the fact, but there has been calls and suggestions that there is, even in the Department of Environment, there's a bit of a conflict of interest. So we can't prove it. So what we state by a review is that a review which is actually economically, environmentally and socially takes in all the accounts of what can be affected, and it will be done by I think the correct word would be a prestigious and qualified review panel.
I call the Honourable Vlada Lemake.
Madam Chairperson, the Honourable Vlad Lemake. Just to further add, also we would suggest that it would be an independent review of unaffected by any bias or any hidden agendas that might occur.
I call the Honourable Dylan Capehorn.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, the Honourable Dylan Capehorn. So who appoints the review? Once again, Woodside, the Parliament, a primary school student?
I call the Honourable Lewis Richards.
Ooh, I personally did myself. Madam Chairperson, Lewis Richards, I did write this amendment myself. I'd like to applaud the amendment, the comment there by the Leader of the Government. All these reviews we have in place at the moment, who do it? There's always going to be bias. I mean, like, for example, look at the sport reviews done by people who are in the sport industry and stuff like that. I mean, like, there's always that argument there is just null and void and just for the sake of argument. I mean, like, if you're at least going to put a sake of argument opinion, Mr. Honourable Leader of the Government and the Legislative Council, Madam Chairperson, goes like, please make it credible. Because, Madam Chairperson, we are here not to make little arguments, snide arguments. We're here as a legislative council, as an alternative thing, to make credible things. And like, yes, I do. And if you like to say, Madam Chairperson, I would like to debate that issue, which the Honourable Justice Minister, who was too chicken herself to make her own bill, own refuting speech, to say that we are here for that reason, and we do practice something, and if the whole chamber believes that what we practice, what we preach is okay, then they'll vote yes, which they have, Madam Chairperson. So please, just sit down.
Thank you, Member. The question is that the amendment be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I believe the ayes have it. The question is that Clause 4 as amended be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The question is that clauses 5 to 7 stand as printed. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I believe the ayes have it. The question is that clause 8 stand as printed. I call the Honourable Luke Kovac.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The Honourable Luke Kovac. I move to delete the clause so that it may be possible to commence the production at some point in the future when it becomes a possible option.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. I call the Honourable Gemma Lee.
Of this clause, thank you, Madam Chairperson, the Honourable Gemma Lee. The deletion of this clause is ridiculous. This plant may only affect 0.2% of the Kimberleys, and it may be an unseen area, but we want to leave it unseen, untouched, and forever beautiful.
I call the Honourable Lewis Richards.
Amendments which has gone through, Madam Chairperson, goes, this clause here will just null and void it. I mean, like, let's have a bit of sustainability and a little bit of, like, you know, equality, and like, let's have a bill which doesn't say you can do this, but then that following clause goes, no, but you can't. I mean, like, that's just, what is the point of making this bill? Madam Chairperson, what this originally, what this I believe this clause did was to create, stop the loophole which could occur from the previous clause. Now with the 4A, it goes, this clause would just say, even so, that a review comes to make it environment friendly. This still says what it can't happen. So what basically the idea which the Honourable Luke Kovac put forward in the reduction, it goes that when it does become economically viable, then it will be happen, and it wouldn't be hampered by any other flawed clauses in this already flawed and pathetic bill.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. I call the Honourable Vlada Lemake.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, the Honourable Vlada Lemake. Further to what the Honourable Member just added, the Kimberley gas plant, the wording of this clause, proposed industrial development, does not include that the Kimberley gas plant. It's ambiguous in nature because it suggests that it's only the Woodside development, but in fact it creates a blanket across any gas developments in that region.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The question is that clause 8 as amended be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The question is that clause 9 stand as printed. I call the Honourable Georgia O'Keefe.
Madam Chairperson, the Honourable Georgia O'Keefe. I move to delete clause 9 and replace it with compensation. Adequate monetary compensation must be provided to the Kimberley Land Council by the party requesting bill.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to.
Yeah, to delete the clause.
I call the Honourable Lewis Richards.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, Honourable Lewis. So just to clear up some issues with the reasons why we are putting it forward, and also for the thing. Just first off, that this was the original thing, and the typo which rejected it. I did actually give the thing to Dylan, and I'm sorry that on my behalf that I didn't pass it to all of you. Sorry, thank you. And reasons why we're putting this through is that this compensation in the original first place, Madam Chairperson, it gives a, even though it says the size of development compensation ratio, it gives a monetary value, and monetary value can be restrictions. For example, this says 1 billion over 30 years for a 25 billion project. What happens if there's a $250,000 project for a hut? It goes that there still has to have the same ratio, while compensation may not be that exact ratio. What this the term adequate compensation means, Madam Chairperson, that it will take into effect all factors which a judicial system does when it says circumstances of events, such as society, economic, environmental my next neighbour's dog's opinion, and it takes it in all these accounts and these favours, and that's why we want to amend it so that there is more of a discretion to the exact value which they agree to.
What about the The question is that the amendment be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The question is that clause 9 as amended be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The question is that clauses 10 and 11 be agreed to. I call the Honourable Lewis Richards.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The Honourable Lewis Richards. This was also another mistake which I think we didn't clarify with the task force. What we intend to do was to amend and delete the 11D of clause 11. Replace with 10D, so it says 11 fund restrictions. No money from this package shall be given to members of the local community directly, except for the purposes of 10D of this Act. This is a typo in the original bill. There is no 11D, and it was actually referring to 10D. That's why we are changing it, so it is correct, Madam Chairperson.
Okay, the question is that the amendment be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The question is that this shall be the title of the bill. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. I call the Honourable Gemma Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The Honourable Gemma Lee. I now move that the Chairman report the bill to the House.
The question is that the Chairman report the bill to the House. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Mr. Speaker, I have to report that the committee has considered the bill and has agreed to the same with amendments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, I call the Honourable... First, there we go. 86. I call the Honourable Gemma Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Gemma Lee. I move that the bill now be read a third time. With the amendments that are now in this bill allowing the possibility of a plant being built in the Kimberley, it just disappoints me that the opposition just wants to develop all the way through Western Australia. Many of your members have mentioned it, that we need to, for economic reasons, we need to improve our industrial development. Sorry? Well, that's what it sounded like. The Kimberley gas plant, it's going to destroy a beautiful part of Australia. It might be undiscovered, it might not have anyone living there, but that's the way we want it. There are so many species that are undiscovered in this region. Like a few weeks ago, there was a report released on the Channel 10 news saying that many new frog species had been discovered in the Kimberley region. What's to say that we won't discover more of any kind of species? It should stop development. It's better than Wikipedia. It should stop development. We shouldn't be developing into such a beautiful region. It doesn't matter who's living there, who's not living there. It's beautiful. We like to leave it that way.
Thank you, Member. Before I cede the call to the refuting member, I officially warn the opposition for the first time. I've resisted it for a fair while now, but he's just pushed it out a little bit too far and needs to be warned accordingly. Excuse me, sir? Then I therefore withdraw the warning. I'm just joking. I call the Honourable Mitchell Goff.
Doesn't make sense why the government is just not supporting this bill now that it's been amended, and now that it's taken into consideration any economic and environmental consequences that may arise. Our amendments have proposed that, subject to environmental viability, a Kimberley gas plant should be built. But what I'm saying,
Members to my left.
It needs to be taken into consideration.
Resume your seat, please, member. A comment that just came out of the member to my right should be withdrawn.
Sorry, Mr. President. I'll withdraw my comment.
Thank you very much. Continue.
In short, in summary, there is absolutely no reason why the government has any grounds to oppose the bill now that it's been amended.
Shame. Thank you, member. We have done that. Okay. I call the Honourable Gemma Lee.
Don't worry about it.
Withdraw your comment, please, member. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. President. The Honourable Gemma Lee, I move that the bill now be read for a third time.
Thank you, member. The question is that the bill is that the West Australian YMCA Legislative Council agree that the bill be now read for a third time. All those that opinion shall pass to the right of the chair and those against to the left. Ring the bells.
Press the bell button.
Lock the doors. Okay. The question is that the bill be now read for a third time. I appoint as teller for the ayes the Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Sorry, teller for the ayes will be the Honourable Gemma Lee, and teller for the noes will be the Leader of the Opposition. We can't count Natricia because the doors were locked. So you can't. 6 noes and 11 ayes. Members, the result of the division is ayes 11 and noes 6. The majority of 5 for the ayes. Therefore, the motion is to result in the affirmative. Members should resume their seats. As a result, I believe the ayes have it, and the bill will be read for a third time.
You stand up and say this, and then third reading.
We need to make someone move that we adjourn the House. The clerk.
A bill for immediate correction of LNG processing and development in the Kimberley region of Western Australia, and to provide a framework for future commercial operations due to ecological significant status of the Kimberley. Third reading.
Thank you, clerk. We moving to adjourn. I call the Honourable Gemma Lee.
Yeah. Sorry, thank you, Mr. President, the Honourable Gemma Lee. I move that the Legislative Council inform the Legislative Assembly about the outcome of the Kimberley Industrial Development Bill 2009.
The question is that the Council will send the outcome of the Kimberley Industrial Development Bill 2009 to the Legislative Council. Sorry, to the Legislative Assembly. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The bill's outcome will be sent to the Legislative Assembly. I call the Honourable Leader of the Government.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Dylan Capehorn. I move that we adjourn until the ringing of the bells.
Thank you, Member. The question is that the House adjourn until the ringing of the bells. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. Thank you. Alrighty. Well done, guys. That was pretty good. Some debates better than what we've seen so far, but not as good, I think. There's a few things that I picked up on were just there was a constant saying of like things that people have never seen and places people have never been, then you could have acted on the old saying, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody sees it, how do you know it fell? You could say, if no one's seen that, how do you know it's there? Things like that. You just got to get in there and really confuse people and give interjections that really put them off topic and offline, just to confuse them. So it is. Other than that, yeah, it was really good. Issue by morning, only because Lewis is really pushing for it. And yeah, that's pretty much all we should say. As we've adjourned half an hour early before lunch, I recommend that we stay within the chamber and do adjournment debates. And just
prepare for your adjournment debates.
Right, prepare for them because they are coming up after afternoon caucus.
Certainly.
If you've already made a start, then just either do a bit more or attempt to help others out. But don't leave wandering around.
In the adjournment debate.
Yeah.
Don't get to... you did really well, Janie. I'm proud of you. Oh, thank you. Figured this thing out pretty well.
Simon, Chad, Felix, and Nick.
Yep.
Walk in,
yes.
they'll say, House President, stand up,
yes.
do the procedure,
yep, usual.
make that announcement.
Okay.
News of the day.
No problems at all. Okay, beautiful.
Is it your first time involved with Youth Parliament?
It is, it is.
Is it your first time in the upper house?
It is as well. So
yeah, I remember you talking about it.
yeah, so I'm like thinking, okay, yeah, we'll be all right.
I was thinking Britz's first time as a speaker.
Yeah. They seem to do all right.
And Mike Nunn and Betts as well.
Yeah. How do they go, right?
Yeah, Betts was quite good.
Yeah.
He was quite good. Nunn was very strict.
Yeah. Well, in the lower were they in the upper house or the lower house? Yeah, lower house is much easier. I mean, we're all there, so it's much easier for us to know how to sort of behave. Whereas this is a little bit completely different.
He didn't hand out any verbal warnings though. Who, Betts? Betts or Nunn. Whereas Britzer, I told him to be a bit stricter because people are getting a bit too comfortable.
Yeah. Exactly. They just call that a message, don't they? They just call it a message from the Legislative Assembly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I got the pleasure of being speaker in question time.
Oh, okay.
I was the one who kicked off all the warnings. I'm taking notes, by the way. No, I'm actually going to write my agenda. No, I'll turn him off. What? The bells keep ringing. One? Both. It's right, if it isn't, I'm sure they'll come on. Yeah. Members, the Speaker. Present.
Members, we have a message from the Legislative Assembly. It says the Sport Reimbursement Bill 2009 has been passed without amendments. Thank you, members. Business of the day.
Business of the day, Education Reform Bill, standing under the name of the Honourable Kate Novelli.
The Honourable Kate Novelli.
The Honourable Kate Novelli. I move to introduce a bill, the Education Reform Bill 2009, and that it be read for a first time.
The Question is that the Education Reform Bill 2009 be read for a first time. All those of that opinion say aye, those against say no. Aye. I think the ayes have it. Clerk.
Education Reform Bill, first reading.
Business of the day. Oh, sorry. What am I doing here? Mistake. I call the Honourable Kate Novelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Kate Novelli. It is no secret, members of the Council, that the Western Australian education system is in utter disarray. The teachers know it, the principals know it, the parents know it, and even the students know it. Our current education system is a disgrace, not only compared to those international standards, but to the standards of other Australian states. Our schools are suffering from decades of neglect, which has seen them deteriorate both in infrastructure and in educational competence. We, the government, will allow this to occur for no longer with the introduction of our Education Reform Bill. We seek to revitalise the schooling system in Western Australia. No longer will we allow for Western Australian students to be disadvantaged against their counterparts internationally and from other Australian states. We will begin with the considerable alteration of the Curriculum Council. For far too long, this peak body has been allowed to operate without restriction, causing it to fail in its duty to act on behalf and in the interests of the principals, teachers and students that it is supposed to represent. That is why the government has decided to alter its composition to include 12 carefully selected students and 11 professionals experienced in the day-to-day running of our schooling systems. The council will be led by a qualified individual with no less than 10 years of teaching experience and a bachelor's degree in education. The change ensures that the council is accurately reflective of the sector that they seek to represent and enables an accountability to occur throughout the education system. As a whole, this will result in the development of a syllabus that directly meets the needs of both the students, the teachers and the principals. The bill will also see the establishment of an Office for Educational Standards, which will be responsible for inspecting primary and secondary schools in every primary and secondary school in the state on a 3-year cycle. The purpose of these audits are to make certain that the learning experience as well as the facilities of each school are maintained to a high standard. It should not matter where a student attends school. From Broome to Augusta, each child in this state deserves a positive and fulfilling learning experience and allowing them to fulfil their ultimate potential. For far too long, certain schools have fallen through the cracks and been allowed to continue in various degrees of disrepair and degradation, severely disadvantaging those students misfortunate enough to attend them. The Office for Educational Standards will guarantee that this will no longer continue to occur. Technology is now used throughout all private and public sector industries. It is absolutely essential that our students are technologically aware and capable. That is why this government is committed to the provision of technological resources to students from every school so that they may develop these skills and become work and further study ready upon graduation. This bill also sees the removal of the courses of study system. This system was implemented against the wishes of the majority of teachers, students and parents within the education system. It led to the degradation of our grading system and prevents students from gaining a clear indication of their true capabilities. It provided more work for an already understaffed and stressed education system. This bill also sees times have changed since the duties of education have solely involved the teaching of the 3 R's, reading, writing and arithmetic. We now expect our students to be well-rounded individuals who are competent in all areas. But we want them to be competent in those skills of reading, writing and arithmetic, but we also want something more. We want them to have an awareness of their community and to actively participate and engage with it. This is why we're committed to the mandatory introduction of community service. This will allow all students in this state to engage with their community directly and see...
That's time, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I call the Honourable Lauren Goodhart.
Mr. President, the Honourable Lauren Goodhart. Quite frankly, this bill is a joke. There are so many flaws in this bill, it took ages to find the right amendments. That is true, we did find them. But the bill as a basis needs a lot of work. We do congratulate the government, however, for abolishing OBE. It's very hard for teachers, parents and students to understand, as every teacher has a different way of teaching and a different way of marking. It was quickly brought in and not thought out well enough. Randomly selected students to be on the council is a preposterous idea, as this could lead to students not wanting to be on the council, or students to not have the right qualifications to learn enough about the council. With the proposed amendments, that we must stress that the students will be advisory only and will not have a vote. This will make it easier for the students to get across what they want, but not to overrule the adults. And also, with the amendments for compulsory hours, it is an excellent idea, as it teaches respect for the community and respect for everyone else around you.
The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Lewis Richards.
President, Honourable Lewis Richards. I'd first like to congratulate the the members of the Legislative Assembly who passed this bill. We do not. We agree as the opposition that there are some parts, as the Honourable Lauren Goodhart said, which are needed in the curriculum system. The WA curriculum system is in need of a reform. However, we believe that the whole all of the parts of this bill are not necessary and not good enough to make actual change, Mr. President. For example, it'd be nice if they actually defined outcome-based education as a course of studies, because outcome-based education has been around since school and start, and A is an outcome. We're based on education. This is a course study, so nice stuff there by the person who wrote this. I find that the marking by independent the inspectors is a great idea. We commend that as well. England has a system like that, Mr. President. We have the Ofsted, which is over 2 weeks. We believe that the list put out in clause Part D of the clause 8 is fantastic. However, we believe that 3 days is not a long enough time, Mr. President, to get all these things done, to have an efficient inspection of the school. That's why we'll be amending it. And the main issue which we have with this bill in this first thing, Mr. President, was the allocation of state funds. 25% of annual state government must be allocated, at least. What happens if other issues such as a nuclear devastation happens in Western Australia? But according to this, we have to at least have 25%. So we'll be borrowing money which is not needed, Mr. President, which is not essential, just so we have the 25%. That's why we say it should be a number, that's why we will be deleting this amendment, Mr. President. And with the laptops, cloud computing, these laptops is not a good idea. With cloud computing software, it is good, and that is why with these amendments we believe that this bill can be passed.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Dylan Capehorn.
Thank you, Mr. President, the Honourable Dylan Capehorn. I'd like to highlight two very important clauses in the Act. The first is the selection of 12 students to go on the Curriculum Council, 8 from government, 2 from Catholic schools and 2 from independent schools. This is, of course, in its unamended phase. The Curriculum Council works out what the students should be learning, how they should learn. Then why shouldn't 12 students be selected at random to voice their opinion? However, we have agreed to an amendment that they are based on an application and they meet a selection criteria. This is to ensure that the people who are joining really want to be there and are really passionate about education reform. However, I digress. To the second amendment we will be proposing, and that is the compulsory community service hours. Some people claim that this system didn't work, that there were reports showing that they didn't do it. However, It has been in the Catholic system ever since it originated. I myself have to complete 20 hours of community service to graduate. And frankly, if they want to create an initiative to do community service hours, it should be in fact that you graduate. We need to teach these little shits, Mr. President. We need to teach these.
Yes, honourable member, I just need to just be careful with the words that you choose, and I'd prefer that you didn't use language like that in the chamber. Thank you very much.
I apologise, Mr. President. I withdraw my statement. Thank you. These little turds, Mr. President.
Honourable member.
I withdraw my statement again. These little charming darlings, Mr. President, they need to initiate a sense of community without some sort of initiative.
The question is that the bill now be read for a second time. All those of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. The Honourable Luke Ellery.
Mr. President, the Honourable Luke Ellery. A particular clause of this bill states that 25% of the state budget should be spent on education, and we do support this bill. How can we dance when our world is turning? How can we sleep while our beds are burning? And how can we sit and do nothing while our education system is in shambles? We need 25% because it ensures consistency. We are currently spending, as outlined in the state budget, 26%. Because it encourages consistency.
Members.
May I please speak, Mr. President? Mr. President, it encourages consistency, and it means that, as has been done in the past, it prevents the denial of funding to the education system. To quote a song, "Oh baby, it is a wild world." And it is, because we need the preparation, and the Department of Education and Training prepares us for all the hurdles in life that we may face. And it is important that this sector never be underfunded.
Thank you, Member. The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Mitchell Goff.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Mitchell Goff. In response to what the member for East Metropolitan just said, it is absolutely absurd to put numerical constraints on what should be a dynamic and changeable economy. Once again, we are, as was seen with the previous bill, we are putting on a definite figure on something which should change with the times. Not only that, but it becomes a redundant clause in that whoever comes into government next time can simply just change the legislation anyway, so it's pointless to have it there.
Thank you very much. Members? Members? Thank you very much. I'm finding it a little bit hard to listen to some of the people speaking, and I have no doubt that members on both sides would like to hear the debate and be able to participate in the debate. So if we could please just show a little bit more decorum and control in the chamber, please. Thank you, members. The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Vladi Lemek.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Vladi Lemek. Mr. President, there is no doubt in this House that education in this state is in a decrepit state. However, Mr. President, this bill, this ill-conceived and rash bill, is not the way to go about reforming the education system. For instance, the clause that dictates the students that will sit on the curriculum council is completely flawed in its operation. These students will be randomly selected. This idea in itself is absurd. What will happen, Mr. President, when we have students who have absolutely no regard for the education system or for the school system to sit on the council and make executive decisions? And not only that, but if they are only given an advisory role, this will just simply lead to a bureaucracy where there is such a conflict of ideas. The executives that will sit on this on this committee, the potential for the bureaucracy to be perpetuated is simply astounding. All we are doing. Not only that, but the inspection reports that were highlighted, that were introduced under one of the clauses, they in themselves, they are a fallacy. They were rashly, they were ill-conceived. The publishing of reports of the school, the state of the school, online is there only to benefit private institutions. For instance, public schools are at a disadvantage because we all know that public schools do not have the same funds available to them as the private schools. Who do you think, Mr. President, who do you think will be able to buy the outstanding grades that are listed in this legislation? Obviously, the private schools, the ones with more funding, and this simply opens the floodgates for privates to tout their grade A's and introduce and to entice more people that should have gone into the public system to go into the private, to waste their money in the private system. The funding clause, Mr. President, the funding clause of 25% is it's redundant because the state budget will simply.
Thank you, member. Thank you, honourable member. The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Jasmine Dale. Who am I looking at here? Lauren Goodhart. No. Luke Kovac. Sorry, Luke. Sorry, the Honourable Luke Kovac.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Luke Kovac.
Mixing up the chairs.
I'm actually going to again stress the point of how ridiculous the 12 students on the council is. If you want to put the same amount of students on the council as you do council members, it takes only one council member to change his mind and go against the rest of the actual council members to suddenly. That's true. But do you want students to have that much power to decide what they could decide on anything? They can change anything, really. They are on the council. That's true, but they have too much power. Do you really want that many kids that can have very immature views, as they are selected at random, as is described in this bill? It makes no sense. It is ridiculous, quite frankly. The amendments are yet to come.
The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Georgia O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Georgia O'Keefe. I feel mass hysteria in the government even thinking to introduce such a poorly written and ill thought out bill. The time has come to make things right. This bill is far too specific in areas such as the funding and is far too general such as Clause 15, where it addresses the idea of laptops. The opposition found out after reading the bill that it is not referring to any laptops, but in fact a specific type that is relevant to the schooling system. Where is this in the bill? It could be referring to anything, and this is ludicrous. Clause 5 is discriminatory, suggesting that someone with a Bachelor of Education is of the highest authority and knows everything, when really anyone with a diploma of education could make a really decent teacher and could really make some real differences to the education system. Clause 6B, BII is also discriminatory, as it refers to two randomly selected students from Catholic schools, when Australia is a secular nation, and it should refer to religious schools, so that it can so religious schools can have an input into the education system, and not just Catholic schools. It has also obviously been addressed that Clause 8, Section C is ridiculous, giving only 3 days as a good time for inspection, as we are proposing an amendment to change it to 2 weeks. Yeah.
Thank you, Honourable. The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Joshua Rayner Bligert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honourable Josh Blino. Firstly, Clause 5 is not discriminatory. It merely states that the chairman should have a Bachelor of Education, so that he knows what he's talking about, and that they can hardly put someone with no actual practical experience in such a leading role. If they do that, they don't know what the decisions that they make will have a direct impact on the education system. So if they've got the 10 years experience and a Bachelor of Education, then they at least know what they're doing. Whereas if you just get someone that doesn't know anything,
Members?
For such a leading role, they should have something
Members?
like that.
Excuse me.
Dittos.
Members? Sorry, can you just sit down for 1 second? I'm just finding it very hard to hear what the honourable member here has to say on my right. If the honourable members to my left can please just contain their remarks and give the same level of respect to members on the other side that most of you have been receiving up to now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the chairman should have a Bachelor of Education. It's not discriminatory. It just gives the council a much more thoughtful, whatever. Yes, really.
It's a highly powerful position.
Not only the degree, the 10 years experience that they also need.
Members?
Could be,
Members?
but not necessarily.
Okay.
It's much, yes, exactly. It's much more likely that someone with 10 years experience and a Bachelor of Education would know what they're doing over someone who doesn't have any of that.
Thank you. Members? I'm reaching the end of my patience with some members in the chamber, and very soon I can see that there'll be a number of warnings being handed out if you're not very careful. So I'm just saying that for the last time, and please show some respect, and I'd like to really hear what the honourable members have to say on this particular bill. The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Gemma Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Gemma Lee. In this bill, it outlines an Office for Educational Standards. This is the inspectors around the schools. This is such a good part of this bill, as it allows a description of description of the school to be found, the overall effectiveness of the school to be known, what the school should do, what the school can do to improve in further inspections. We are able to recognise the achievements of these schools and help the personal development of its teachers and its leaders. Excuse me. It allows the school to develop, and it allows people to understand where the school is going wrong or what they're even doing right.
Thank you. The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Ian Garlett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. President, the Honourable Ian Garlett. Once again, I have to bring up the random selection of students. So students should at least be able to nominate themselves instead of being randomly selected. Therefore, you don't have anyone with no regard for the education, and therefore the students that have genuine interests are on this panel. And the banning of laptops, they have access to internet, which can be a very useful tool in education. And the fact that it only states Catholic schools, apart from other religious schools, to participate in this panel is discriminating against these other religious schools. And the fact that the Honourable Government would like 20% of the budget allocated to education, I'd just like to give the Honourable Minister for Child Protection a dose of own medicine. It can't be spent on many other things.
Hear, hear. The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Rachel Moles.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Rachel Moles. This bill introduces an Office of Education, which consists of a team of inspectors who perform inspections of schools in a 3-year cycle. This brings the Western Australian education system up to the level of the eastern states, who already have triannual inspections. It is a step forward for WA education system. The reports written by the inspectors are published on the internet, which allows parents to choose a school which offers a higher education and compare schools. This forces schools with lower education results to improve, and this benefits students. which allows them to choose schools which allow them to reach their full potential.
Thank you. The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Sinead Newman.
Mr. President, the Honourable Sinead Newman.
Sure.
I'd like to agree with what the Honourable Rachel Moles said about the inspections. They are a very good idea, but 3 days is not a long enough time to complete an in-depth enough inspection.
The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Natricia Barnett, sorry.
Mr. President, the Honourable Natricia Barnett. I would just like to make a point about what the Honourable Opposition have said in terms of the clause being discriminatory in the sense that it's discriminatory to say that we want someone with education, with a Bachelor of Education or Diploma of Education. If you were in hospital and you were about to be operated on, would you say that it's discriminatory for the hospital to choose someone with a Bachelor of Medicine or a Bachelor of Science or something relevant to the actual job? Would you say that that's discriminatory?
Members.
I see that, when you apply for a job or when you are in a sort of qualified role, you need to have the experience and the qualification to back that up. I mean, you don't want to be operated on by a doctor who's, gone to TAFE and, done a nail course or something. You want someone with a medicine degree, okay? I'm not disputing.
Members. I call the Honourable Georgia O'Keefe for the first time. I think I've mentioned already, and I also call the Honourable Lauren Goodhart and also the Honourable Dylan Capehorn. Members, I want you to, again, keep it down. I'm trying to hear what the Honourable Member has to say over there, and I'm finding it very difficult, and I've already given you your warning.
Sorry, I've lost my train of thought now. Okay, I'll just make a brief mention of the laptop idea. Someone on the Honourable Opposition mentioned that it was insufficient, like it was only used for internet or something. I'd just like to point out that as long as the laptops are of sort of basic standards, as long as you can access the internet, as long as you do have the Microsoft capabilities, as long as you can run the programs that are necessary for the educational process, I think irrelevant of what type of laptop it is, it should be considered okay. Thank you.
The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Elizabeth Shortening.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Elizabeth Shannon. Time and time again, we have seen the government interfering in and dictating the future of Western Australia, both of its citizens' lives and the economy. We have seen them dictate cannot have any economic development in the north. They have been interfering in telling judges
Members.
what they can, what sentences they can give to criminals. It is foolishness for the government to assume it has the right and the ability to dictate future state budgets. It is simply preposterous. They do not have the right to dictate and force future governments to spend 1/4 of the state budget on education. We do not deny that education spending is important. We strongly agree with the government. Education spending is perhaps one of the most important roles of the government. Students are, after all, the future of the state. However, the government should not dictate in such absolute terms the state's future budget, particularly in a period of such economic uncertainty.
The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Tammy Ann Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Tammy Ann Caldwell. I would just like to put on the record that nearly all of us in this House agree that the system of OBE is a terrible marking and learning system disliked by teachers, parents and students. I had letters written in the paper published explaining why OBE is so bad, and every teacher at every school I visited, which is many, all said they agreed wholeheartedly that it was a terrible system. I endured OBE grading system from year 8 to year 10, and I can tell you from first-hand experience it is a terrible learning and marking system, and it honestly is a travesty to Australia's education. It is ridiculous that you must understand and learn to work with the levels only to revert to a different marking system when you do your TE or in year 11 and 12. Basically, there are 8 levels of achievement meant to cover from year 1 to year 10, but the whole system means you can just work at your own level. In my year 10 class, there were people graduating with level 2, no joke, graduating with level 2 in all their subjects. The very lengthy Curriculum Council OBE book that attempts to explain in a very confusing, in-depth manner to teachers in 500 plus pages how to use this grading system, which is another problem with the system, says that the average year 3 student should be achieving level 2, but this system allows year 10s to graduate and pass every assignment with level 2. OBE sees an extreme dumbing down of the education system, for it provides no incentive for the student to try and do their best and to try and learn and achieve at a higher standard, for there is no need to achieve a certain grade or percentage in order to pass anything, because they can just work at their own level and that's enough, that's fine. They don't need to try and do better. And I'm quite sure that the great thinkers and inventors of today and yesteryear weren't told to just work at their own level. The proposed new grading system would be formed in consultation with teachers and pupils, and it would be much better than the OBE.
The question is that the bill be now read for a second time.
Who hasn't spoken?
Michael. No more speakers?
Because it appears that we will probably have half an hour to spare, if there are no more speakers on the second reading, we might allow people to speak a second time for the second reading. So is anyone willing to take the call?
The Honourable Vlade Lemic.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Vlad Lemic. There is no question that that our education system needs to be changed. But this bill that the government has proposed is simply ineffective in eradicating the issues that exist in the system. For instance, the funding issues, the student representation, the laptops, these were all band-aid solutions that were thought of in the... It's evident that the research put into this bill, Mr. President, perhaps lasted for a couple of days maximum. The numbers, I mean, what is the point, Mr. President, of having discrete numbers, for instance, 500 inspectors? What happens if the Curriculum Council employs 501 inspectors? Does that mean that the Curriculum Council is going to be liable to lawsuits and the like? This bill needs a significant amount of work, but I'm afraid that, and I'm sure the honourable members of the opposition are also afraid that amendments alone will not eradicate the issues that exist in this bill. Let this be known to the Parliament of Western Australia. The youth, the future generation, the people who will lead this society, they need to be educated to a proper extent. The youth they need an education, a functioning education system, but this bill right here will not solve the problems that exist in the education system at the moment.
Thank you. The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Lewis Richards.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Lewis Richards. I think we need to stipulate, because I think the ears of the government are closed. I mean, we are not saying that this is. Thank you, Miss. Thank you for sharing that. We're not saying that this is a step in the right direction, but we don't think that this bill currently at the moment, which we are debating in second reading, not amendments, is not good enough. That's why with the amendments, Mr. President, we think is a further step. But in personal opinions, some people may think it is, some people may it isn't. That's why we're voting on this. But Mr. President, sorry, my apologies. The whole idea of discrimination, I mean, it is flawed all over this bill, Mr. President. I mean, for example, I can understand the Honourable Patricia Barnett's idea that you would want a person who's studied medicine or science to be doing surgery on you. But what are the things about teachers? You don't exactly have to have a Bachelor of Education to be a teacher, Mr. President. You can have a diploma of education, and people with diploma of educations might be better, according to than people who have bachelor of education, Mr. President. For example, people may have an opinion that the current Attorney General of the Legislative Assembly is probably one of the most qualified we ever had. But some people may depend that the former one, who just had a honours degree and a postgraduate degree in law, might be better. So we're not necessarily stating, we can't necessarily state that the more qualified you are, the more better you are. Experience is key. That is why someone with a diploma of education with 10 years or 15 years might be better than someone with a bachelor of education with 10 years and 15 years. It just depends. Some teachers are better than others, some teachers, Mr. President. And also with the whole with Catholic schools, I can understand Catholic schools are massive in Perth. It's definitely, when I moved over, I saw how many they are. But there are religious schools, there are Islamic schools, there are Seventh-day Adventist schools. That they should not be discriminated to have a say if their students do have a say in this curriculum council.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Natricia Barnett.
I don't mean to get personal, but the Honourable Lewis Richards keeps continually mentioning that we're not talking about the amendments, so why do you keep bringing up the amendment topics? You keep saying that we're not talking about the difference between a Bachelor of Education and a Diploma of Education, and you're not disputing, the idea of relevance and, experience and qualifications, but why do you keep mentioning it? The difference, there is no difference between a Bachelor of Education and a Diploma of Education, there is, but you just said that we're not debating it, so... the only difference is really the amount of time that you spend studying. So I don't understand what you're saying. So yeah, amendments later.
Sorry, the question is now that the bill be read for a second time. The Honourable Lewis Richards.
Thank you, Mr. President, the Honourable Lewis Richards, and I thank the statement. I do apologise, I probably did go off bit topic. What I'm stating is that we cannot state that a person with Bachelor of Education will be better qualified or better to say to be the president of the curricular council than a person with any other degree who is a teacher. Someone might have a diploma of education or something like that and might just have a law degree and might be a teacher, and he'd be better than someone who actually did a bachelor of education. What I and the opposition was stating is that degrees don't state that you're better than someone else. I'm going to get a law and economics degree at UWA. It doesn't mean I'm better than someone who does law at Murdoch or teaching at ECU. Because we all have fundamental differences, Mr. President, and we shouldn't discriminate just for the sake that someone has a degree, Mr. President. We should say who would be the best for the job. There's a difference between who is best qualified and the best for the job, and that is why we are strongly opposed the having in the Bachelor of Education clause in this bill.
Okay, the question is that the bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Dylan Capehorn.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Dylan Capehorn. I want to go back to something the opposition brought up before, Mr. President, if I will. They were talking about the private schools buying the grades. So do they get out their checkbooks, Mr. President, and go to the inspector? Right, we'll have an A grade. That'll be $100,000, thanks. There are public schools in the northern and southern metropolitan area, Mr. President, that are better than most private schools. My school is a private Catholic school, and it is in a state... And it is a shame that I go to a Catholic school because I'm an atheist. But my parents sent me there for the improvement of the education. But there are some public schools, and I could mention some names, but I won't, that have improved education results. My high school got one outstanding effort last year in the Curriculum Council Awards. It was beliefs and values. That's because they forced everyone in the school to do it. There were public schools getting marks in political and legal studies, economics. That not every public school is in a state of disrepair. Not every private school has gold urinals, fantastic teachers and brilliant courses.
Thank you. The question is that the bill be read for a second time. The Honourable Vlade Lemic.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Vlad Lemic. The Honourable Member opposite the statements made by the Honourable Member opposite, Mr. President, were quite simply... flawed to such a great extent. Private schools, we all know here that private schools have the advantage, have the unfair advantage on public schools in getting students to attend. We know that the private fees, which range in the thousands of dollars per semester, go straight to that school. They go straight to that school. They can do with whatever they want. Exactly, they can do whatever they want. The public school, the government system in general, it's not perfect, it's flawed. Funding doesn't go to perhaps where it should go more often. Not only that, but I'd like to echo the sentiments of the opposition leader who stated that qualifications doesn't necessarily mean best for the job. For instance, I personally know, Mr. President, teachers that did chemistry degrees, finished teaching at TAFE, attained a certificate, and are perhaps one of the best teachers I've ever come across in my schooling career. To state that they must have a Bachelor of Education and completely disregard all other available options of tertiary study is simply, it's flawed. I can't believe that the government would propose such an idea. We must not limit curriculum council chairpersons or whatever the position was to people who simply held a Bachelor of Education. The Bachelor of Education is fine. But what about all the other degrees? How about on top of that 20, 30, 40 years experience? Would you not consider that the 30 years experience would make them more qualified than someone who had just come out with a Bachelor of Education and had just been in the school system for 10 years? Yeah. To say that they must hold a Bachelor of Education discriminates against all the people who could have been as good as or better than the person that sits there.
Thank you. The question is that bill be now read for a second time. The Honourable Luke Ellery.
Luke Ellery. The opposition has time and time again brought up the point that private schools have more funding and therefore achieve better results. That is a fact. If you pay more for your education, you should expect higher results. If they are paying school fees, then they should expect the school to put that additional money towards better education so that the students can achieve better results. It is ludicrous to propose that outcomes education is unfair because it discriminates against private and public schools. The fact of our school system is it is discriminatory. What do you want to do about it? Do you want to propose a communistic school society where everyone gets public? No. People should have the choice. The fact is that in an outcome-based education, you can expect the people who pay more to receive higher results. And there is nothing wrong with that. Nothing.
Okay, the question is that the bill be now read for a second time. All those of the opinion say aye. To the contrary say no. I think the ayes have it. We're now going to go to committee stage.
A bill for an act to establish an office for educational standards that will inspect and regulate all primary and secondary schools in the state, to make community service compulsory in secondary schools, and to make reforms to the school curriculum which aim to maximise students' knowledge and learning experiences. Second reading.
The committee will now consider the Education Reform Bill 2009. Okay, we've got the clauses.
Question is that clause 1 stands printed. We'll just go through them.
Okay, the question is that clause 1 stand as is printed?
All those of that opinion say aye.
All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Okay, I think the against, no? I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Okay, the question is that clause 2 stand as printed? All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against, no? I believe the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is that clause 3 stand as printed? All those of the opinion say aye. Those against, no? The ayes have it. The question is that clause 4 stand as printed? All those in favour of the opinion say aye. Those against, no? The ayes have it. The question is that clause 5 stand as printed? All those in favour say aye. Sorry. All right, we've got the... Oh, wait a sec.
Excuse me for 1 second.
Okay. The Honourable Luke Covet.
I move to include the words hold a Bachelor of Education, and add after the words hold a Bachelor of Education the words or a Diploma of Education, so that the clause will then read 5. Section 6.2b amended. Section 6.2b is amended as follows. A. Include the word minister. Include after the word minister and must hold a Bachelor of Education or Diploma of Education with 10 years teaching experience. This is to eliminate discrimination against those who hold a Diploma of Education as opposed to just.
Thank you, Honourable. The question is that the amendment be agreed to. Okay. I was going to speak on that.
All those opinions say aye.
All those of the opinions say aye. Sorry, the Honourable Dylan Caporn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. This brings up an interesting issue, a Diploma of Education. This is obviously it's still a well-esteemed diploma, Mr. Chairperson. However, I'd like to agree with the fact that the Honourable Natricia Barnett brought up, that you wouldn't want somebody with basic knowledge of a surgeon committing surgery. Or even the Honourable Vlada Lamaic wouldn't want somebody representing him in court without a law degree. You wouldn't want an economist reporting on the economy, then why would you not have a teacher doing teacher's work?
Yeah, it depends. We'll see how the vote goes.
The members, the Honourable Lewis Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The Honourable Lewis Richards. I'd to just try and correct the opposition, the opposing government leader, as you said that we don't want a person who's a teacher or an artist. Well, Bachelor of Education doesn't really mean you're going to be a teacher, Mr. Chairperson. I mean, like for example, I might decide to go and do politics, I might go and do arts, but I have a law economics degree. Well, I can say, sorry, you don't have a Bachelor of Arts, therefore you can't do history or politics. What basically he's saying is that to be in any specific role, Mr. Chairperson, in society, you've got to have a bachelor. That's not necessary. A Diploma of Education is what a teacher needs to be a teacher. That doesn't mean it has to be a bachelor. That means you could, as I said earlier, it means you could have done like the Diploma of like Tiddlywinks at like the University of blah 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 in La La Land. It means like they have a Diploma of Education. They have a Diploma of Education, which means they can't teach. So what we're doing, we're not discriminating against the fact that someone, as I said earlier, Mr. Chairperson could be a Bachelor of Education, but he could be in a right, I don't want to say the word idiot, but I think I'll say the word, he could be not very good at policy making, while someone who has a Diploma of Education, Mr. Chairperson, might not exactly have a Bachelor of Education, but he may be, or she may be, or if Child Protection Minister got denuded maybe, will be that there's some things that they might be better. So why should we discriminate as to the fact that they haven't got a BA ed on their name, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairperson?
Okay. The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Mitchell Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Mitchell Goff. Quite frankly, and it should come as no surprise to those sitting here, the government has taken a very, very elitist position when it comes to choosing the chairman for the Curriculum Council. They're so wrapped up in their blue ribbon that they cannot see, Mr. Chairperson, that experience is far more preferential to just a degree written on a piece of paper. Not only is this elitist, but they are also having two bob each way by saying that students also have equal power. What qualifications and degrees do they have?
Thank you. The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Georgia O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Honourable Georgia O'Keefe. I would just like to point out a flaw in the government's argument about that students should be allowed on the council because they have experience of this system. With the government's argument about whether we'd like an inexperienced lawyer to represent us in court. So if a criminal has gone through the system, that they have experienced this system a lot, so would you like a criminal for your lawyer because they've experienced this system?
Thank you. The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Luke Ellery.
Honourable Luke Ellery. The fact is that when we decide on policies affecting West Australians, we ask the West Australians because it will affect them. And it is only fair to have the students' opinion on the education system, as they will be the ones who will be affected by it. It is not wrong to have their opinion, as they have experienced the education firsthand. The teachers only implement it. The students actually get to see the result of it through their own grades. Therefore, it is logical. We are not dealing with criminals unless the student is one. It is logical to have the student on the council.
Okay, the question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Lauren Goodhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The Honourable Lauren Goodhart. May I just remind everyone in the chamber that we're actually discussing the minister, not the students.
Thank you. The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The
Chairperson.
Members. The Honourable Lewis Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The Honourable Lewis Richards. I'd like to thank the Minister, the Honourable Lauren Goodhart, just taking the words right out of my mouth. But yeah, just to talk about this issue about like a piece of paper saying you're better than someone else. I mean, like that's basically what this government and the Legislative Assembly government decided to put through. I mean, for example, I'll give you an example of sport. I mean, like sometimes, like someone who's done his qualification in sports science and all these things doesn't mean exactly be better than someone who's experienced the sport for 20, 30, 40 years. Why should a piece of paper, rather than experience, state that thing? I mean, Bachelor of Education with 10 years experience, that's good. But I mean, like, first 4 years as a teacher, Mr. Chairperson, you have to go around, they basically tell you where to go, then you find a place, and I mean, 6 years, I mean, like, you can be inadequate, you can be rubbish. I mean, there's teachers at my school, which I won't state on record, which had been there for 15, 20 years, and they were atrocious. They were like trying to tell me that like it wasn't anything wrong with what the Allies did in 1918 and 1919 at Treaty of Versailles, which led to the Nazi Party forming. I mean, like there is definitely a ring, but they'll say no. This is what the textbook said, and what this thing. But that's wrong. I mean, like just because they have a more than 10 years education, a bachelor education, doesn't really state that they are the best person for the job. And remember, this is not an affirmative action thing, Mr. Chairperson. We're not saying that it goes like there has to be. We don't want people to go like, okay, that means this blah 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 has to be on the minister. We want the best person for the job. Isn't that the point of like people leading policies or being in the government? We want to see who we think is the best person in the job. And I would rather someone who is the best person in the job because he can do policies, rather than someone who has a piece of paper saying he has a Bachelor of Education.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Tammy Ann Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The Honourable Tammy Ann Caldwell. Two things. We're not saying that we don't think experience is important. We entirely agree experience is a very important thing for this role. We're saying they must hold a Bachelor of Education or, with this amendment, diploma with 10 years experience. We're not saying either or, you just have to have a diploma and that's it. We're saying with 10 years experience. We think experience is very, very vital. Secondly, if the teacher, as the Honourable Opposition Leader was just talking about, if a teacher or an applicant for the chairperson's position is atrocious, they're not going to be chosen and appointed. These Bachelor of Education diploma with 10 years experience is the minimum that an application for the chairperson of the Curriculum Council must hold, and then the applicants would be assessed on merit as well. You're not going to choose an atrocious person with a Bachelor of Education and 10 years experience. If they're atrocious, it's still going to be on merit as well. This is the minimum they must hold.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Lewis Richards.
And Honourable Lewis Richards, and I applaud the Child Protection Minister's thing that merit is key. However, without this amendment, Mr. Chairperson, it goes like we're discriminating. We are still going to discriminate because, I mean, merit and experience are key factors. But why should, as I said earlier, and I can't believe I have to say it again and again and again, it's like why should someone with a piece of paper saying he went to University of Notre Dame, ECU, University of Western Australia, Murdoch, Curtin, who did a Bachelor of Education, Mr. Chairperson, be better than someone who may have got might not even gone to university and got to play in education for the TAFE system or work system or any other system who might have a more better thing. So what this amendment will do is that it will allow people, teachers without the Bachelor of Education to apply. And therefore we're going to get a greater range, therefore we can, this logic states a greater range, I mean, could be better, there will be better people, Mr. Chairperson, and I can't see why this amendment will not go through. I mean, like, logic dictates that we want the best of every teacher to apply, not just someone who's got a Bachelor of Education, Mr. Chairperson, and that's why this amendment needs to go through.
Okay, the question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Luke Ellery.
The Honourable Luke Ellery. The opposition leader has time and time again repeated the question, why should someone with a sheet of paper be given rights over someone who hasn't? Or in this case, someone who has a diploma. The fact is that that sheet of paper represents that they have advanced training and therefore advanced knowledge. The advanced training means they have advanced knowledge, and that is the one thing that trumps a Bachelor of Education over a diploma. They have spent the extra years in university studying in detail. In detail, there are some things that experience cannot account for, but the fact is we have included 10 years of experience so that someone with an atrocious reputation cannot be included. The fact is we are narrowing the criteria so that only the elite can be selected, and from there we may choose someone with a good reputation. No, but they have not got the advanced training and therefore advanced knowledge, and that's why it's important. That sheet of paper represents that they know more through the studies at university than the person with a diploma.
Members, the question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Vlade Lemick.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Vlad Lemake. I'd like to remind the member opposite that this should not be a forum for for advocating universities over TAFE institutions. Thank you very much.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Lewis Richards.
Person, the Honourable Lewis Richards. University degrees doesn't mean you have advanced training and something, Mr. Chairperson. For example, as stated, there's probably a Minister for Environment and Legislative Assembly, Mr. Honourable Felix Ellis, who's probably smarter than everyone else here. I mean, like, he's way smarter than me and like way smarter than other people. And he's a plumber. He is a plumber. So just because he doesn't have a piece of paper which says that he did this advanced training, Mr. Chairperson, means that he could be a better person and an applicant of a job. What a diploma of education states is that they have the qualification to be a teacher, and of course with the 10 years experience which the Legislative Assembly government put through, goes, Mr. Chairperson, will ensure that like every teacher, come to say this again, every teacher, doesn't matter if they're from Hale and got like a Bachelor of Education at UWA, the most prestigious one in UWA, or a Bachelor of Education at Cambridge or Oxford. That means they may not be trumped, that people may trump him over who got for example, no offence to any university, an education degree at ECU, or some other low one, or TAFE, or not even that went through diploma from a after school postgraduate thing. I mean, like, this is what it says, is we're going to have the best of the best from the whole cohort, not just a select few. And this is why this amendment is needed, so then every single teacher with 10 years experience can apply, and then the best one out of all of them we put through.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye, those against no. I believe the ayes have it. The question is that clause 6 stand as printed. All those in favour say aye. Those against? Okay. The Honourable Member Senior Newman.
Mr. Chairperson.
Sinead.
The Honourable Member Sinead Newman. I move that the words Catholic schools and endorsed by the Catholic Education Commission be deleted and substitute the words religious schools, and delete 6B3, and after the words represented on Curriculum Council, the words from a list of candidates who I must apply when a position comes vacant, and I must meet criteria set by the Curriculum Council, so that the clause would then read, Section 6(2)A inserted. Section 6(2)A inserted as follows, amending the Curriculum Council Act 1997. A. The Student Council is to consist of a chairperson appointed by the Minister and must hold a Bachelor of Education with 10 years teaching experience. The Council must also consider a Chief Executive Officer, 11 other persons appointed by the Minister, and 12 representatives from a wide range of schooling backgrounds. B. Of the student representatives appointed under subsection A, I are to be 8 randomly selected from government schools. 4 are to be randomly selected from religious schools. C. All student representatives are to be selected randomly by computer databases to ensure that there is no bias in selecting which schools are represented on the Curriculum Council from a list of candidates who I must apply when a position becomes vacant, and I must meet criteria set by the Curriculum Council. D. The students selected to sit on the Curriculum Council will use their work for the Curriculum Council as a course of study to ensure that they are actively involved in that work and that they do not become disadvantaged as a result of being selected to sit on the council.
Thank you. The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Lewis Richards.
To the Honourable Lewis Richards, I just like what states on Hansard and on the official record why we're going to put this amendment through. We believe now, obviously 5A has been changed to a Bachelor of Education or a Diploma of Education, but we believe that government schools do make the most schools in Western Australia, so they should have the most opinion, they should have the greater amounts of people on the student council, Mr. Chairperson. But what we're saying about the changing the Catholic schools to religious schools, I mean, like, Catholic schools maybe 50, 60 years ago when immigration wasn't that big in Australia after World War II, when people came over, like the £10 POM and all those other issues, because they Catholic was probably the major, and probably still is the major religion in Western Australia, Mr. Chairperson. But we cannot discriminate and exclude other religious schools such as Islam, even if people may be against the Islamic nature, Mr. Chairperson, or Jewish schools, or Seventh-day Adventist schools, or Mormon schools, or Christian schools, or Anglican schools, or every other religion or other thing in the school. So what we're stating is that religious schools must select from religious schools, so if they are applied, we can try and get a random selections, because there are obviously different types of religion schools in Western Australia. And for Part C, which is a government amendment part of it, and I commend that, we don't want the average Joe, the average, for example, with no offence to him, Mr. Chairperson, the average bogan who doesn't care about anything, he just goes there because he has to, he's been forced to. What we want is people who are passionate about education and the Curriculum Council, so they apply, and we choose out of them. So people who are passionate are putting input into the Curriculum Council, Mr. Chairperson, and just not people who just go for sake of school or won't be passionate, because isn't that why we want people on this Curriculum Council, is the students being on the Curriculum Council, so we have passion and we have people, students, Mr. Chairperson, who are passionate and want to change the education system.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Dylan Capehorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Honourable Dylan Capehorn. I would like to commend the opposition on their wonderful amendment to include the religious schools as one whole group instead of separating Catholic and independent, by allowing religious schools such as the Jewish, the Islamic, the Buddhist, the Mormons, the Sunday Adventist, all those schools, Seven-day Adventist, thank you, Mr. Opposition Leader. By allowing a broader range of spectrum, you're allowing for a different cultural diversity on this council. You're allowing for different school experiences, Mr. Chairman. I'd also like to praise our amendment, Mr. Chairman, from the list of candidates. Now, the list of candidates who join are people who should be passionate not just about the education system, but about education reform, Mr. Chairman. They actually need to want to be on there, instead of choosing the Year 8 bogan who's simply going there because, I thought it was cool. But they should meet criteria selected by the Curriculum Council. They should not be anybody. They should have not a clean record, but an almost clean school record. So you haven't got the school bully. You haven't got the one who punched out little Johnny's teeth, proposing reforms to the way English is taught. You also don't want a little year 1 kid being asked, why do you think the discrete mathematics course is not working, and what sort of reforms do you propose, Mr. Chairman? In that situation, we support the amendment.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. All those of the opinion say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Okay, the question is that clause 7 stand as printed. Those of the opinion say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Okay, the question is that clause 8 stand as printed. Sorry, there's an amendment. The Honourable Christine Hamilton Prime.
I move the words that 500 and the words 3 days be substituted with 2 weeks, so that the clause will then read, Clause 8, Office for Educational Standards. An Office for Educational Standards will be established consisting of a non-executive board and team of inspectors. The aim of this office will be to inspect and regulate education in all primary and secondary schools in the state. The office will report directly to Parliament to ensure that information remains impartial. B. The non-executive board will consist of a chief inspector of schools, a chairperson and 8 other members. All are appointed by the Minister for Education. C. The office will inspect all primary and secondary schools in the state on a 3-year cycle. Inspections will take place with a non-prior notice being given. Each inspection will be led by a lead inspector and a team of 5 inspectors who will inspect a school over the course of the 2 weeks. D. The purpose of each inspection will report on 1. A description of the school, 2. The overall effectiveness of the school, 3. What the school should do to improve further, 4. Achievements and standards, subsection 1. Personal development and wellbeing, subsection 5. Quality of provision, teaching and curriculum and other activities, care, guidance and support. Leadership and management, the extent to which schools enable learners to be healthy, the extent to which providers ensure that they stay safe, how well learners enjoy their education, the extent to which learners make a positive, how well, how well learners develop workplace and other skills that will be contributed to their future economic well-being. E. Once the inspection has been completed, the inspection team will provide oral feedback to the inspected school with a clear indication of its strengths and weaknesses. An inspection report will be then published and made available online. F. A graded scale will be used for marking judgments in inspection, with grades being as follows: 1. Grade A, outstanding. 2. Grade B, good. 3. Grade C, satisfactory. 4. Grade D, inadequate. If a school's overall effectiveness is deemed inadequate, inspectors will decide what special measures are to be taken. And G, the Office for Educational Standards in all of its actions should aim to promote service improvement, ensures services focus on the interests of their users, and see that services are efficient, effective and promote value for money.
Okay, the question is that you may agree to the Honourable Lewis Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, Honourable Lewis Richards. I'd like to thank my Deputy Opposition Leader for getting through that essay of a clause written by the government. So I thought, I'll do the good thing and explain why so she can rest our throats, let my throat go even worse. Basically, why we are getting rid of the term 500. Well, WA's population, Mr. Chairperson, has always grown. It goes like there's schools grown everywhere. Recently there's been 2 or 3 schools created in my local area, and that's just for my local area, and they're in the space of 3 or 4 kilometres from each other. Because that's how much demand we need. And how do we know in legislation, Mr. Chairperson, that 500 is going to be adequate? So, what this rejection of the removal of the 500 in the 500 inspectors will mean that the Office for Educational Standards will have discretion to see how many inspectors are actually needed, because you don't want people who are working, Mr. Chairperson, just to be sitting around in an office because they don't need to do anything. Mr. Chairperson. So this is a great way of having discretion in it, Mr. Chairperson. And also, way down the thing, which was the other amendment, was from 3 days to 2 weeks. Now, the things we listed in Section 8, Clause 8, Part D is a lot of things to go through, such as description of the school, overall effectiveness, quality provision, leadership management, extent to which providers ensure they're safe, Mr. Chairperson. This is not going to be able to all be done efficiently and effectively to give a good grade in 3 days. That's why we're given the option of 2 weeks, and they'll be effectively, we'll have a long time, Mr. Chairperson, to give a outstanding, a good, and satisfactory, so parents in the future, Mr. Chairperson, can look at it and go like, okay, they have an adequate, sufficient inspection and they've been given an A, so I'm going to send my kids there. Or they've been given a D, so I'm not going to send kids there. Or C and B, wherever we want to put it down, Mr. Chairperson. So that's why we think 2 weeks is better than 3 days.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Dylan Capon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Dylan Capon. And once again, I'd like to congratulate the Deputy Opposition Leader for taking us through that amendment. We agree completely on the 500 inspectors. The change is required. And I apologise to the Minister of Education, who I understand is still in the room. The 500 inspectors at one stage could be not enough, and at another stage it might be too many. And in that case, you're paying for, like the opposition leader said, a bunch of people to sit around an office twiddling their thumbs and playing solitaire, like most of the teachers in the system. However, we digress. We must digress, because we've only got 45 minutes. We have the 2 weeks allows for a more adequate representation and a better interview process for the school. I understand that in my primary school there was at least 20 classes, and in my high school there is double that, triple that. Therefore, to go around to not every classroom, but for an inspector to sit on a majority of classes and see what the teaching experience is like is required over three days. If it's 3 days, Mr. Chairperson, you'll have the inspector popping their head in, right, what you learning, that's great, let's leave, next classroom. Over a period of 2 weeks, you can sit in on at least one lesson and see how the teacher A treats the students, B teaches the students, and C how the students react in the class and whether or not they're learning. Because heaven forbid, should our education actually do that?
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. Those of the opinion say A. Those of the against say no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Okay. The question is that clause 9 stand as printed. All those in favour say aye. Those against say no. Ayes. Aye. Okay. The question is that clause. Well, actually, I think it's is it 11 the next one? Yeah. Okay. What we'll do is we'll go clauses 10 to 11. Sorry, clause 10. The question is that clause 10 stand as printed. Those of the opinion say yes. Aye. Those no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Clause 11. The question is that clause 11 stand as printed. The Honourable Gemma Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Gemma Lee. I move that clause 11 be deleted and substituted with 11, learning through service grants. No, sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. Yep, here it is. 11, compulsory community service. For those students who wish to graduate at the end of Year 12 with achievement of a WACE, they must complete 10 hours community service for each year from grade 8 to grade 12 inclusive.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Dylan Capon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The Honourable Dylan Capon. This system was previously initiated in the public education system and was moved from the private education system. However, it was only 20 hours instead of the 50 hours. We believe that 10 hours of community service each year from Year 8 through to Year 12 will not even, as I mentioned before, teach the darling little children a sense of community and a sense of well-being, and that everything in life is not just paid for. You do some voluntary work, whether it be for your local school library or whether you go down to the local hospital and cheer up the children. However, it needs to be done and it needs to be brought back. And the reason the initiative that they need to do it is that they're graduating. And if you want to graduate, you have to show some sense of community spirit, not just that you can pass English.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Lewis Richards, sorry.
That's all right, Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Lewis Richards, and I'd like to commend the government for this amendment. Oh, we had one early, boys. As we've got quite a long time to go, I'm just going to disagree on this. 10 hours of community service is not enough, Mr. Chairperson. Because this will not give a sense of community development. I mean, 10 hours could mean like 2 hours helping someone help a sports stadium, do a sports stadium, or help a sports club. I mean, that's not going to do anything for a community. Or castrate someone. Here to that. But what I'm trying to state, Mr. Chairperson, is that I believe this doesn't go too far, Mr. Chairperson. I think that little toddlers 4 or 5 should do community service as well, Mr. Chairperson. They should be able to have mandatory conscription. We'll conscript them into this compulsory service, Mr. Chairperson. And we think it should go. That's why I reject it, because we don't think it doesn't go far enough. And I also believe that most secondary schools in Western Australia are actually starting year 7. So actually the first year of secondary schools, I think just from memory, are going to be left out. So just for year 8, year 9, year 10 and year 12. That is why, on sake of debate, I am disagreeing this, Mr. Chairperson.
Okay, the question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Lauren Goodhart.
Chairperson, the Honourable Lauren Goodhart. 10 hours is definitely not enough. 10 hours is a day and a bit. That's it. In a whole year, an average working day. An average working day and a bit. So I personally do so much community service I don't even think about it. So the people that do lots, it's very easy to get, which is good because they are already helping the community. But for people that don't do it, they can go to a library for the opening hours and it's done. One day in the whole year, definitely not enough.
Okay, the question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Dylan Caporn.
Chairperson, the Honourable Dylan Caporn. I'd like to first of all point out to the Honourable Opposition... the Honourable Opposition Leader that at the current moment, the old system that was removed was that the community service be done between the years of year 10 and year 12, so that the year 8s and 9s were excluded. I'm sure they really want to go out and do work for free. However, the 10 hours of community service, we feel that especially in year 12, which is a TER year, that the 10 hours of community service is enough. It gives them some sense of community. If the opposition is proposing that they do 1,000 hours a year, go out and support their local library, support their local little league team and help them play football, or do other things which are registered under the program, then I'm sure we could accommodate that sometime in the future. But for phase 1, it should be 10 hours.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Vladar Lemick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Vladar Lemick. I'd like to thank the Honourable Member opposite for his 1,000-year suggestion, but I'd also like to suggest that there's about 40 hours in a week, 50 weeks, that's 2,000 hours. You're suggesting that about half of that goes to community service. We, on the other hand, are a more rational opposition who suggests perhaps instead of 10, maybe 20, maybe 50, maybe even 100, but a number of hours that will give each student responsibility and a feeling of community service. Something in short, we agree that there must be a program where the students give something back to society. There are too many students that leave high school or even in high school and don't have any of the values that we consider as a society appropriate for them to have. This is why we suggest more than 10 hours. It is simply not enough.
Okay, the question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Lewis Richards.
The Honourable Lewis Richards. I'm just going to continue our great stance of that. A numerical number shouldn't actually be, and I'm going to just completely disregard my last thing. We shouldn't have numbers. There should be enough community service which is going to be on the discretion of a teacher. Why not let's have that instead? Because and also I think the deputy leader also forgot. I think we're changing number 13 as well. I thought I'd just state on hands that what number 13's been changed as well. Basically, what number 13 is stating that if there is a unregistered program which they decide to do, it has to be up to the principal should advise the curriculum council for the program. The principal, for example, might be a staunch, let's say, a staunch religious person, Mr. Chairperson, And the person who wants to, my community service will be just tell you how about the evils of religion or something like that. I mean, like, is a principal going to advise a curriculum council and go, this is a good community service? They're not. So, like, we have the principal can have their own certain values, Mr. Chairperson, and we believe that, like, they should go straight to the curriculum council and not go through the principal if they want to get this applied to, Mr. Chairperson.
Point of order.
13.
Mr. Chairperson. I believe that, Mr. Chairperson, sorry, I think the amendment of the thing is to be delete the whole clause, which doesn't say there's a part. I think it should say delete the part, not clause, on the actual thing, and change 11, 12, and 13 because they are all separate. And if they were separate, they should have been put differently. If that's a miscommunication, then we apologise. But we thought 11, 12, 13 together. I'll stick to 11, Mr. Chairperson.
Yeah, he's correct. Yeah. We will treat them as separate clauses.
Okay, can I sit down and start again?
No, you're fine.
Okay, sorry, I've got 20 seconds. I've got 20 seconds now, but might as well.
Get another chance.
Okay, sorry. I'll just sit down and I'll continue on. Mr. Chairperson.
He's got some spirit.
Like my
Honourable Lewis Richards.
Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Lewis Richards. Clause 11. Waste. Graduation. The mining boom's shown that we don't need people with graduation who need to graduate to get jobs. I mean, these people who didn't graduate, Mr. Chairperson, were getting nearly quadruple the amount of money, the average wage of a person in Western Australia than a qualified person. Why should we waste? Why don't we just say every student? Not even if they don't want to complete a waste. Why don't we say every student? I mean, why stop at waste? Why don't we start, if we want to get into university, why don't we get into primary education? Why don't we get into university? How to get into TAFE? How to get anything? Why should a waste, although it is key, I think, as I've talked to a certain policy maker in the education system, has said that waste is, like, important, but it's not the only thing. It may be the bottom, but it's not actually the highest. Why we should raise it higher so we have these children striving to get these jobs, these better jobs, and not just be an unskilled worker. Because unskilled workers, especially Western Australia, are the people who are holding back our prosperity. We need skilled workers, so we have these great people who maybe have a diploma or something, or a bachelor or something, or a TAFE certificate, which are skilled and we're able to do stuff. I mean, we should just get rid of the whole, I reckon, I don't know what I'm talking about anymore, Mr. Chairperson. But community service, we do agree on the community service
11.
idea. Clause 11, thank you, Mr. Chairperson. We are saying compulsory community service in this certain area is needed, and we are stating that sometimes mandatory and compulsory is needed, Mr. Chairperson, just to clarify on for the government. However, we're saying it doesn't go further enough, and that's why we are disagreeing with this amendment.
Okay, the question is that the amendment be agreed to.
I think one important thing that you've got to remember is that this 10 hours is forced. The student who's doing this 10 hours every year doesn't have any choice. And the fact is that we do recognise that, like the Honourable Lauren Goodhart, people do more community service than 10 hours, but they do that willingly, and that makes them better workers. If you were to propose a very large figure, like the outrageous 1,000 hour figure proposed, the fact is the students... I'm not saying the opposition did propose that, but if, for example, you were to propose that, the students would not be doing it with the same zeal and enthusiasm as if they had 10 hours and did any more with their own choice. And I think that does affect the actual effect of the work they're doing.
Okay, the question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Georgia O'Keefe.
Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Georgia O'Keefe. Can I please point out to everyone in this room that 10 hours in a year is an hour a week for a term? That is absolutely nothing. That is nothing. That is ridiculous that each student, for a year, everyone can achieve far more than that, and this is benefiting the community. Surely that is a cause worth working for.
Yeah. Okay, the question is that the amendment be agreed to. Those of that... just 11. Just 11. Those of that opinion say yea. Those against, no. Oh, sorry. Okay. Normally it would have been just about too late. The Honourable Tammy Caldwell. Tammy-Ann Caldwell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. The Honourable Tammy-Ann Caldwell. I would just like to say that 10 hours of community service is the minimum that they have to do. If some students do find that they enjoy the feel of accomplishment and satisfaction that they get from doing the community service, they're more than welcome to do more than the 10 hours, even to continue it after they finish school. But for an initial minimum period, 10 hours is quite enough, and you must remember this is a parliamentary bill which can be amended in future.
Okay, the question is that the amendment be agreed to. Those of that opinion say yea. Aye. Those against say no. The amendment's been agreed to. Okay, the question is that clause 12 stand as printed. The Honourable Gemma Lee.
Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Gemma Lee. I move to delete clause 12 and substitute with 12 universal recognition of hours, community service hours shall be recognised by all schools.
Okay, the question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Lewis Richards.
Person, the Honourable Lewis Richards, and just 12. Thank you for clarification.
Shame.
I'm trying just for Hansard's sake not to sound like an absolute idiot, but why should it be recognised by all schools? Why should some schools say yes? Why should some schools say no? Why should it be all recognised by all schools? This is a travesty. This is a travesty, and I'm just going to sit down now because I'm making a fool out of myself.
This is the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Dylan Capon.
Mr. Chairperson, I understand that the opposition leader is debating for the sake of debate, and I'm enjoying the comedy, Mr. Chairperson. I'm going to give the Parliament a hypothetical. Say we have little Jimmy Jones. Jimmy Jones is in year 10. Yeah. Do you know what? He's been bashed by his bully, but that's irrelevant at the moment. He's done 7 hours at his local school library. He filed the books away and he typed things into the computer and he did all other things. Little Jimmy then gets beaten up at school and wants to leave, and he moves to another much better college, a much better high school. If the school does not recognise the 7 hours he's already done, and I understand that 7 hours isn't that much, but if the school doesn't recognise, those 7 hours have gone to waste. It's like me screwing up the... That's like me throwing up the piece of paper and throwing it in this convenient bin. Mr. Chairperson, this clause is required to make sure that the clause 11 makes actual sense.
Okay, the question is that the amendment... Members? The question is that the amendment be agreed to. Those of that opinion say yea. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Okay, the question is that clause 13 stand as printed. The Honourable Gemma Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The Honourable Gemma Lee. I move to delete clause 13 and substitute it with 13. Register of recognised programs. A list of registered programs shall be determined by the Curriculum Council. However, if a student requires an unregistered program for hours, then the principal should advise the Curriculum Council of the program.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Lewis Richards.
Chairperson, the Honourable Richards, the unlucky number 13. Okay, I've got it right in front of me this time. Okay. Let's start to continue on my debates, which I went off on a tangent, Mr. Chairperson. A principal should advise the Curriculum Council of the programme. I think on the opposition's, therefore, my argument for this, Mr. Chairperson, is that the principal could have a factor. He might go, or she, or they, or neutered, according to the castration bill, which will state that, like, for example, and I do state that, like, if they were convicted sex offenders, they wouldn't be in a principal. They wouldn't be in a principal position. But that's why we have a working safety check, Mr. Leader of the government. But the principal could go to someone. Oh yes, I'll put this through, but he actually doesn't. I mean, like, what the principal could be totally against their idea of what community service is. A community service, someone might be, for example, go into indigenous culture and trying to help out with some of their problems, whilst community service, some other person might be going down to a park and cutting leaves off a tree. I mean, the principal might have his own agenda to it, Mr. Chairperson, and if they have their own agenda to it, Mr. Chairperson, I do not have any faith. I actually would agree to that because I do not have faith in principals because there are principals out there who are a disgrace to this Western Australian public, Mr. Chairperson. They do, and it's fact. The previous principal. The previous principal at my school for my public school, let's call it SSHS, which I find does stand for it, but I'll leave it there. He was pretty atrocious. I mean, he had no idea what was going on. He was very disagreeing. So I mean, what I'm saying that the principal shouldn't have the option to advise curriculum council because what they say and do might be just totally irrelevant to what the actual unregistered program is.
Okay, the question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Lewis Richards. Sorry, Dylan. I'm expecting him jumping up and down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Dylan Capehorn. I'd like to propose. We admit the government has had a few contradictions this week. However, this is a big contradiction because it was only on Tuesday, Mr. Chairperson, that the opposition were proposing, what if, and this is exactly that, a what if situation. Mr. Chairperson, these people, they're hot and they're cold. Quoting a very good philosopher. They're in there and they're out, they're yes and they're no. A what if? The principal could have a secret agenda. He could be a conspiracy theorist and disagree with working at the local water plant. But Mr. Chairperson, we should ignore the what ifs and just allow the principals, Mr. Chairperson, to have some sort of control over the hours. If it's not a registered program, and the principal should be able to email somebody at the Curriculum Council or ring them up and say, hello, I have a student here, his name's Jimmy Jones, and he'd like to work in our school library. That is how it should be, because I say so.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Tammy Ann Caldwell.
Chairperson, the Honourable Tammy Ann Caldwell. Just briefly, I will sprout my National Party viewpoint on this point. If 10, 11 and 12 are if the students are from a farm or in a very small country town, both of which places I have lived, there is very little community service, actual official organisations that you can go and do. But there are lots of other things that you can do in surrounding sort of national parks, farmlands, roadsides, etc. This is why this clause is needed, so that people that live on farms and in small country towns can still take part in these things.
It's discretion.
Okay, the question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Mitchell Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to say something now that's going to shock everybody. Okay, I actually agree with the suggestions made by the member opposite just now, and
members.
And I disagree with the leader of the government in his statements that legislation should not account for everything, because it should. This is a piece of legislation that needs to go through, and thus it needs to have all its bases covered.
Okay, the question is that the amendment be agreed to. Those of that opinion say yea. Those against no. The ayes have it. Okay. Which clause do we have to do? 14.
Yep.
Okay, the question is that clause 14 stand as printed. Those of the opinion say yea. The Honourable Vlad Lemick.
Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Vlad Lemick, I move that the clause, in fact, Part 5 be deleted in its entirety, which is just clause 14. The reason for this is, I'll just reiterate what was brought up before. It's simply redundant to have a clause that stipulates how much, or the allocation of state funding, when a state budget will simply produce an implied repeal of this section. It's redundant, it's useless, and it has no place in the legislation.
Okay, the question is the Honourable Dylan Capehorn.
Two highly important facts, Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Dylan Capehorn. I'd like to point out two very important facts to the opposition. Yeah. I'd actually, for once, I'd like to be heard in reasonable silence, Mr.
Members.
Chairperson. I'd like to point out two facts. First of all, they're saying you can't tie the Treasury hands, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to disagree with my own Minister for Child Protection, but that's what her party leader did. They have tied the hands. The National Party has tied the hands with 25%. However, the reasoning behind the 25% is that no government, like has occurred in the past, can neglect public school education. I think we need to move away from the royalties for regions issues as improved or as good as it serves the community. However, the issue is with the 25%. Governments have neglected education, and this is how some generations have come out. They have come out under a neglected education system. This 25% guarantees, Mr. Chairperson, that education cannot be neglected, and it should also be noted that this year's budget, which is almost in a deficit, spent 26%. Therefore, this is clearly justified, Mr. Chairperson.
Okay, the question is that the member agreed to. The Honourable Lewis Richards.
Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Lewis Richards. I think we have to stipulate again, Mr. Chairperson, the opposition is not saying education is a useless part of the budget. It is essential. Children are the future, and we need them to be educated. However, we can't stipulate a forced percentage, a minimum of something, of a number such as 25% on a budget. Should I say a reason why? I'm going to give a hypothetical, as the gallant person say. Let's say, for example, this MPI we put through nuclear power earlier on Monday was made. And for example, there was a nuclear meltdown, because it can happen, and we can't stipulate that it will never happen. What if? What if? And so millions and millions of billions of dollars will have to be to the cleanup. According to this, that means we have to go more and more and more and more in there. And I know how the government has already stipulated that they're against debt, even though debt is good. I'm currently in debt, many people, but I'm having a prosperous life, as I'm pretty sure the Minister for Child, Police, Justice and Corrective Service will say as well. But because 25% is just not, it's just not rational in most circumstances, Mr. Chairman, even at current the moment. And I want to give one more other explanation as why we think this is bad. I think currently, for the last couple of years, I think 75 or 70% of the budget funding for education, Mr. Chairperson, has gone to private schools. It has got a private school. No, it is true. It is true, Mr. Chairperson. I can stipulate it. No, Wikipedia, the Department of Education and I think it's training as well, I think at the moment, Mr. Chairperson. Well, maybe we should have, instead of saying 25%, so the private education can have more, how about we stipulate that as it is a state government schooled, how about they should have more of the funding, because isn't that just logical that we're providing a service for public education, Mr. Chairperson, that they should get more of the funding? Because it is despicable. There are buildings at private schools, Mr. Chairperson, which are falling to pieces. So, no. Yes, because the thing is, Mr. Chairperson, and I'll just quickly go over time if that's possible, that we can't have stipulated numbers for budgets. Why don't we say 50%, Mr. Chairperson, and then go on child protection, because that's an important issue to a couple of people, or 75% of the budget will go on to, building a canal system, which the Honourable Premier has said in the past. This is what we need to do, Mr. President, is that a adequate government. If we don't think a government's good enough, we vote them out. That's what we're a democracy. If we believe that they're not spending much of the budget, there's a thing called public forum. They're just getting the shadow treasurer, I think there's Honourable Ben White at the moment, to write to him and go there's not enough money spent on it. That's what we do. There's no such thing as we can't have a say. We always have a say to governments, because remember, Parliament is representing us, and we can have say. So 25% is a mandatory number. It's too high, and even if it was 5%, that's just still ridiculous, because we shouldn't have a fixed number when it's something which can be affected and changed in the future, because budgets are not stipulated and do not stay the same.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Luke Ellery.
The Honourable Luke Ellery. Once again, we have another what-if case scenario from the government. You cannot base the economy on the what-if scenarios. What if a terrorist blew us up now and we wouldn't get to say our adjournment debates? You cannot base spending on what-if scenarios. It's appalling. To quote Lewis Richards, it's too high, 25%. Then why are they spending currently 26% as outlined by the federal budget? And it is one budget which must have been perfectly reasonable for them to set the figure to do so. 25%, Mr. Chairperson, 25% is a reasonable figure, as it has already been done in the past, and it prevents the case of ever the education system being underfunded, and that would be a travesty to happen.
Okay, the questions that the member agreed to, the Honourable Vlad Lemek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The Honourable Vlad Lemek. The simple fact of the matter is that, look, budgets change over the years, all right? Last year we had 26% allocated to education. Next year perhaps we won't need that much. It'll be like royalties for regions in the sense that they'll be giving money to country towns that simply don't need it. They'll be spending it on useless, gratuitous infrastructure projects or whatever else. Exactly, a fountain or another gazebo to go with the 300,000 that they already have. Legislating 25% at the very least, there is no justification to have such a high amount when circumstances change. This is why we have state budgets coming out periodically, because circumstances change. For instance, for 1 year, perhaps from this year, we have the 26% of the state budget that was allocated to education. Perhaps some of that money might even carry over. The upgrades, maintenance, all that. Yeah, exactly, maybe they're not used in 1 year, or the maintenance that is used towards public schools or public infrastructure, whatever it may be. They don't need to be upgraded every single year. Next year, perhaps they'll need less money, more of which, if there was 25% that was legislated, perhaps, this is another what if, but it's a decent what if, perhaps that money could have been used better elsewhere. Health, infrastructure, criminal justice system, exactly, but not chemical castration with your right-wing politics. The simple fact of the matter is, legislating that 25% in itself it is redundant, but the idea, although altruistic in nature, simply does not work.
Okay, the question is...
Your face doesn't work.
The Honourable Natricia Barnett.
The Honourable Natricia Barnett. I would just like to comment on what the Honourable Opposition Member has just said. I think that the 25% minimum is actually a really, really good thing, because as you're saying, budgets can change, things can change, circumstances, subject to, different pressures. In saying that you're happy to reduce 25% next year, you're basically limiting the possibilities for education. I understand that you're saying infrastructure might not necessarily need, 25%, education infrastructure, so building schools, classrooms, whatever. But there is a certain element where you can upgrade your teachers every single year. I mean, you're saying basically that you don't agree with the fact that your teachers could be doing more and more courses each year, building upon their education, building upon their training, building upon their skills. I don't really understand why you don't agree with that.
Thank you. Members, we've got one more amendment to go, so I just might take one more and then we'll put it to a vote. So I'll ask the Honourable Mitchell Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I think I'm having deja vu, actually, because so far this week we've had a government that is absolutely obsessed with imposing mandatory legislation. There is absolutely no need whatsoever to impose a numerical constraint on a budget that is dynamic in nature. If a government was to spend 3% in 1 year on education and it was made public because the budget is a public document, there would be a public outcry as a result. To suggest that a government would be able to go on spending inferior amounts of money on education is just absurd.
Thank you very much. The question is that the amendment be agreed to. Those of that opinion say yea. Those against, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is that clause 15 stands as printed. The Honourable Lauren Goodhart.
Thank you,
Goodhart,
Mr.
sorry.
Chairperson, the Honourable Lauren Goodhart. I move that the clause be deleted and substituted with 15 laptops. A. Students in Year 11s and 12 from all schools across the state will be provided with laptops with cloud computing software which are issued by the Department of Education and are modified to incorporate the Department of Education standards. B. These laptops must be returned to the contractor. We've amended this clause simply because we needed to clarify that the laptops will not just be laptops, they will be cloud computer software laptops. This is where a Curriculum Council network will be installed onto the computer so that you can only, when you access the internet, you can access the network which will have all of your relevant documents on it. You'll have basic software, Word. There won't be a chance for the students to add computer games or anything like that on it, and it will only be specifically for work purposes only. And we have also put in that we would like the laptops to be returned to the contractor, not so that they can be reused because they need to be reused they need to be updated every 3 years, but take them back to the contractor so they can be recycled, and which is a environmentally friendly factor.
Okay, the question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Dylan Capehorn.
Chairperson, the Honourable Dylan Capehorn. In one way, we agree with this cloud computer system to prevent kids from downloading games, pornographic images, pornographic videos, all that sort of stuff, and it's prevented by my school network at the moment, which is a damn shame. Shame indeed. I'm struggling downloading the games. However, we agree with the cloud system as it allows a much easier and a much preferred system. However, the laptops must be returned to the contractor. So we'll go back to little Jimmy Jones. I'm pretty sure it's Jimmy Jones, Mr. Chairperson. Yeah, he's been beaten up, but his laptop he was bullied on the bus. His laptop was thrown out the window. So what do you... I'm glad the Honourable Lauren Goodhart feels so sorry for him. However, in that sort of situation, the laptop is badly dented, probably doesn't even work anymore. So that just allows the students to abuse the laptop. They're allowed to graffiti on it. Sorry, they're allowed to put stickers all over it, and really, that shouldn't be allowed.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The Honourable Lewis Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Honourable Lewis Richards. I can kind of see what the leader of the government's coming through with that issue. I mean, like, if some children we do give discretion to do what they want with it, they will abuse the power. But, for example, we're saying they can go back to the contractor. I mean, like, as I think the Curriculum Council Act states that I think computers and all that stuff have to be reevaluated and updated every 3 years. So I mean, like, we're not saying like, I'll give that to contractor, who's going to like just pass it on to the next person. What we're doing is that these things are only cost around about $150, Mr. Chairperson. I mean, like, we're basically allowing this to be a gift to the students who want to go on to further education, do a TE or TAFE. We're going to give an incentive. We have a little laptop which you can go to your mate's house, and while you're studying there, Mr. Chairperson, you might go, I could really help you with that essay because I did it last year, or like, I might give you some help, but I actually don't have it on me. You can just go open it up, couple of type of buttons, go onto the network, log in, and there it is. And I also want to state, I'm not promoting plagiarism as the opposition, as the leader of the government. In that, I'm promoting that we share our work. I mean, like, for example, I am probably worse than Julie Bishop when it comes to things as well. She's just fine-looking lady, may I just say. Mr. Chairperson, basically what this means by contractor, we don't mean like they can look at it and go, this one's been dented or this one's been abused. goes, they're going to make $150. It's an insignificant amount. I mean, like, we're not saying they get it from the manufacturer. The contractor is going to get it, Mr. Chairperson. And what they're going to do, they're just going to recycle it. Or they're going to do whatever they want with it. It's up to contractors' wants. And we're not going to put legislation in to tell basically a contractor what they do to their stuff, because it's their own property and they're lending it to people who want to give it back. And we can't force them what they want to do with their own assets if it's not going to affect any other externality or any other issue, Mr. Chairperson. It's just ridiculous.
This will be the last speaker at this time because of timing. So the Honourable Luke Ellery.
Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Luke Ellery. The point of having to mandate that children return the laptops to a contractor just doesn't make sense. It's like giving an old lady a cat and then saying, make sure you give it back to us. It just doesn't make sense. The fact is that... Yes, but cats can't be reused either. The fact...
Members.
Forget the fact is that the school should be left at their discretion to choose whatever punishment they see fit if children mistreat the laptops. It should not be up to some contractor.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The question is that the amendment be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Okay. Now we go. So now we go to this part, don't we? Yep. Okay. The question is that the bill shall be the title of the bill. The Education Reform Bill 2009. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. I call the Honourable Kate Novell.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Chairman report the bill to the House.
Okay, the question is that the Chairman reports the bill to the House. All those of that opinion say yea. Aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I have to report that the committee has considered the bill and has agreed to the same with amendments. Third reading.
Yeah.
I call on the Honourable Kate Novelli.
Mr. President, I move that the bill now be read a third time. As all members of this council can agree, our Western Australian educational system is in absolute disrepair. This is a fact recognised by the principals, teachers and even the students. They all know it. And now we are acting upon it. This bill, the Education Reform Bill 2009, is our first step. This bill tackles the hard issues. It does not shy away from the challenge that is the reformation of our education system. For far too long, our students have endured a substandard level of education, a disgrace to both our Australian and international standards. This bill, with amendments, addresses this. The Curriculum Council will be reformed to achieve the purpose for which it was intended. To act on behalf and in the interest of the key stakeholders of the education system, the principals, the teachers and the students. The abolition of the course of study system is a long time coming and is a relief to all those involved. The establishment of an Office for Educational Standards will see each school in this state be inspected on a 3-year cycle. No longer will children be disadvantaged by location or class. Under this bill, every child will be provided with an equitable education, placing them on a level footing with their counterparts in the eastern states and indeed the rest of the world. No child will fall through the cracks under this government. Technology is now an irrefutable part of the modern society, and it is utterly essential that our students are trained in technology and aware and are competent to use it. This is essential for them to be prepared for future study and work. Through the improved allocation of technological resources, as contained in this bill, this will be achieved. Furthermore, this bill will see our students graduate from school as well-rounded individuals after completing 10 mandatory hours of community service. For this all to be achieved, we, the government, are committed to setting the minimum funding the minimum funding for the education system at 25% of the total budget. This bill will see the end of decades of disrepair and deterioration in our educational system. Finally, the students of the Western Australian education system will receive the level of education that they deserve.
I call the Honourable Lauren Goodhart.
The bill with the amendments is good, but it's still not good enough. This education reform bill should be about reforming the bill, not handing out laptops and making community service mandatory. There are still many flaws in this bill and they need to be addressed properly.
So she has to move, doesn't she? Yeah.
I move that the bill be read for a third time.
Okay, the question is that the Western Australian YMCA Legislative Council agree that the bill is now read for a third time. All those of that opinion shall pass to the right of the chair and those against to the left of the chair. Ring the bells. Oh, they're all leaving, are they?
They're abstaining.
Abstaining. Okay. Lock the doors. The question is that the bill be read for a third time. I appoint the teller to the ayes, the Honourable Dylan. Doesn't matter. So there is no teller for the nose. Dylan, Honourable Dylan Caporn. The result of the division.
It's a close
how many have you got?
It's a 12 for the ayes and none for the noes.
Okay, so the result is 12 for the ayes and 0 for the noes. A majority of the ayes for the ayes. Therefore, the motion is resolved in the affirmative. Members should resume their seats. I think the ayes have it. The bill will not be read for a third time.
Education Reform Bill 2009. A bill for an act to establish an office for educational standards that will inspect and regulate all primary and secondary schools in the state, to make community service compulsory in secondary schools, and to make reform to the school curriculum which aim to maximise students' knowledge and learning experiences. Third reading.
Sponsor?
The bill is passed.
Does she have to get up or not, Daniel? Yeah.
I move that the Legislative Council inform the Legislative Assembly about the outcome of the Education Reform Bill 2009.
Okay, the question is that the Council send the outcome of the Education Reform Bill 2009 to the Legislative Assembly. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Those against no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The bill's outcome will be sent to the Legislative Assembly. Okay. And I think that's it, is it?
That's it.
All right.
Mr. President, I move that the House now adjourn to the ringing of the bells.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Take a seat. I just want to say a couple of words quickly, if I may. I don't know if either of the leaders wanted to say a couple of words as well. Afterwards, no, look, I'd like to thank Daniel for the wonderful work he's done, and for giving me the opportunity to be the speaker here, or the president here today. It's very unusual. I'd like to also acknowledge Honourable Roger Cook there, the deputy leader of the opposition, who's come along to observe. Good to see you here. Can I say, and he will probably agree, that being from the Legislative Assembly, it was good to see a little bit more robust debate in the Legislative Council. I don't think it's normally quite as robust as, far too gentlemanly in the past. So, from my perspective, in terms of presiding over this, I sort of had a leaning towards that side of the energy, and it was great to see that it was there, and it was great to see you all getting up and making some very good points and some good interjections and some humour in there as well. So it was worthwhile for me, and I'm sure the people in the gallery as well quite enjoyed listening to yourselves getting up and speaking. I saw a few smiles on their faces from time to time. But look, congratulations, job well done, fantastic event. Is this your last day, or you're going tomorrow as well? It's the last bill, so that's great. I have no doubt you want to congratulate the key organisers, and I wish them well in all their endeavours in the future. But thank you very much. I might leave.
Thank you very much, Jamie.
Thank you very much. Yes, definitely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Great job, well done. Yes, definitely. Thank you very much. Great job.
No. In the lighthouse, you have to be a minister or in the chamber for 12 years. Oh. No, we are honourable.
Congratulations.